Of course his expression was unnatural. The tortoise Long Chen said he had killed was Han Zhenyu. In truth, Han Zhenyu hadn't been an imperial prince. He was not even part of the main imperial branch. However, he was still part of the imperial family, and the Grand Han had to stand up for him. That was why Han Zhenyu had possessed an identity jade plate of one of the Grand Han's experts. However, it hadn't been able to protect his life. One of the 8 princes had been killed. It was a slap in the Grand Han's face. Furthermore, for Long Chen to call them tortoises made Han Wenjun's fury soar. But he didn't express it. Instead, he indifferently said, "I've long since heard of your grand name, but it seems your coarse words and actions aren't quite in line with your position. Does the Grand Xia have no one else?" "No, you've completely misunderstood. There is no one more suited to this position than me. No one else wanted to do it, so they sent me. See, I'm wearing special armor, so I'm not afraid of getting any piss or shit on me." Long Chen patted his armor. Han Wenjun had tried to cut at Long Chen twice, but all he received were slaps in the face. Although he suppressed it very well, his expression wasn't so good. He had originally been wanting to infuriate Long Chen in order to see him fly into a rage. He was a specialist at that, which was why many people in the Grand Xia would immediately get so incredibly infuriated just upon seeing him while also being helpless to do anything to him. One of those people was Xia Yunchong. However, Han Wenjun had chosen to target the wrong person. When it came to ridiculing people through sarcasm, Long Chen was definitely on the level of a grandmaster. "Since the Grand Xia sent you to receive me, I trust that you, Long Chen, must be well versed in the 4 arts of zither, chess, calligraphy, and painting, as well as the usual poetry and singing?" Han Wenjun switched his attack point. Han Wenjun's delegation had come under the banner of exchanging culture. They would have exchanges with the Grand Xia over poetry, singing, as well as the 4 arts. Of course, an exchange of martial arts was also a part of their duty. That was why those who received the delegations all had to be people of great talent in all these regards. They had to be masters of both pen and sword. Han Wenjun had already heard that Long Chen was someone who came from extremely poor origins who only focused on the martial path. He had been struggling on the bottom levels of the cultivation world and had only managed to suddenly soar to his current heights through chance. He had no cultural learning as a foundation. Therefore, he was now targeting a country bumpkin's fatal weak point. Singing, poetry, the 4 arts, the 3 religions, the 9 schools, the 5 phases, the 8 trigrams, the changes of the plum blossom, the ancient art of divination, there is nothing that I, Long Chen, do not know, boasted Long Chen. You stop bragging. How is someone like you supposed to know that much? Han Wenjun was first shocked, but then he quickly realized Long Chen was just duping him and he sneered. Even the thousands of the Grand Xia's guards were shocked and looked at him with disbelief. That was too exaggerated. Don't try to use your intelligence to judge mine. Just because you haven't seen a kind of person doesn't mean that they don't exist. Let me ask you, your dad, speaking colloquially to save any misunderstandings, your father is skilled in chess, correct? Asked Long Chen. Correct. My imperial father rarely finds a worthy adversary in chess, boasted Han Wenjun. Naturally, a generation's emperor had to be skilled in countless arts in order to convey them to their people. Han Wenjun's father was the current Grand Han Emperor, and he was truly talented. You might not believe me, but I met your father a long time ago. I really have to say that your father is truly talented. However, your father, Old Man Li, he's a bit too stubborn, said Long Chen. Hold on, what are you talking about? I am surnamed Han, and my father is the Emperor of the Grand Han. How could he be surnamed Li? Interrupted Han Wenjun. Idiot, I just knew your intelligence makes you only fit to be a frog at the bottom of the well. The well, that's good for me. You're surnamed Han, and your father should have the same surname. Sorry, you're right. I've met so many people that I've gotten them mixed up. Long Chen acted embarrassed and apologized. However, it's true that I do know your father. It should have been around 10 years ago. Back then, I was just a youth playing chess at home. Your father suddenly appeared and said he wanted to play chess against me. Back then, I had no idea your father was an emperor, so I didn't go easy on him. Well, it goes without saying that your father's chess playing was excellent. However, I wasn't bad either. The two of us fought intensely, neither of us able to get an advantage over each other. The sky turned dim, the earth darkened, the sun and moon lost all their light. The people listening were speechless. It was just chess. There were only so many pieces. How could it get so exaggerated? Long Chen seemed to be afraid of being interrupted, and he rapidly said, "That fierce game of chess was extremely bitter. Our pieces were slaughtered, and in the end, we each only had one piece left. I had a rook, and he had a bishop. I wanted to declare a draw, but your father refused. Your father bishoped me with his bishop, and as for me, I could only rook your father with my rook. As a result, we ended up in a stalemate. Your father bishoped me, I rooked your father bishoped me, I am your father is like me, I am your father." Long Chen was speaking too quickly, and Han Wenjun had heard him say, "Your father is like me, I am your father," 3 times before understanding. "Long Chen, you're courting death," roared Han Wenjun. "Oh, what's going on? Weren't we just talking so nicely? Why would you curse me like this?" Long Chen asked with a puzzled expression. "You are provoking my Grand Han." Killing intent filled Han Wenjun's eyes, and an immense pressure crashed down onto Long Chen. "What are you talking about?" "I was just telling a story," said Long Chen innocently. You're clearly provoking me. I'm getting tired of hearing that. Didn't you try insulting me several times just now? How was that not a provocation?" Long Chen shook his head and said, "Honored Han Wenjun, my Grand Xia is a mannerly nation, but we won't let others be unbridled. I was just telling a story. The person who played chess against me was Han Zhongsheng. Back then, I had no idea he was such a big figure, and only when I arrived in the Central Plains did I learn he was the Grand Han's emperor. Back then, I was filled with worship. I simply haven't had a chance to pay my respects to him in person yet. Bastard, do you know how many people have the same name in this world? How do you know he was my imperial father?" Raged Han Wenjun. Long Chen suddenly became enlightened. So it was just someone with the same name. Looks like it's a misunderstanding. Now that I think about it, I could never figure out why a Grand Emperor would come to play chess with me. Many thanks for clearing up this riddle for me. Long Chen cupped his fists to him gratefully, causing Han Wenjun to almost puke blood. He had once more been conned by Long Chen. Furthermore, he had even been the one to say there were many people with the same name. He had essentially given Long Chen his excuse. Now he couldn't even express his rage. Just as Long Chen was enraging Han Wenjun, in the depths of the distant palace, the Grand Xia's emperor, Xia Yong, was sitting with Xia Yuncheng's master, drinking wine. Long Chen really is talented. However, Li Tianxian already used this move before, and now you're using it as well. Don't you feel like you're just copying him? Xia Yuncheng's master smiled at Xia Yong. There are many things that are repeated in scriptures without it growing old. Don't you think that this scene is very delightful? Xia Yuyang didn't mind. They were currently watching a projection of Long Chen wildly gesturing and unleashing flying spittle in order to conceal his, "Your father is like me, I am your father." The two of them were both smiling brightly. They were extremely high and aloof existences, and it was their first time seeing this kind of wordplay which commoners would often play with. Han Wenjun had finally learned his lesson. He suppressed his fury and began to act as if he was enjoying the scenery as they traveled down the road. He no longer spoke with Long Chen to avoid being angered. He found that even 10 of him were unable to match Long Chen's tongue. Long Chen knew 1,000 times the number of tricks he did. The slightest carelessness would cause him to fall into a trap. However, he was still a bit unwilling, and he secretly gestured to one of the women beside him. "To be so coarse, are you even a man? When did the Grand Xia's men decline to this state? No wonder the Grand Xia's women all prefer to marry into my Grand Han." The woman looked at Long Chen as she spoke. "You actually sent a woman now? The Grand Han's men are truly scoundrels." "Sorry, pretty miss, I need to correct a few things about what you just said. First, I am not a member of the Grand Xia. I was merely asked to fill this position at the last moment. So what you said has no meaning. Second, you shouldn't say such a thing to a man. What if they said, 'If you don't believe I'm a man, why don't you come and try it?' Just how would you reply to such a thing? Long Chen shrugged a bit helplessly. Although he put it indirectly and tactfully, it wasn't very subtle. The woman immediately turned red. Rogue. This woman was definitely beautiful, with curves in all the right places. But compared to someone like Long Chen who had seen his share of peak beauties, she was like a green leaf compared to the flower that was Meng Qi. Pretty miss, this also doesn't have any meaning. You're clearly the one who questioned my male equipment and reproductive abilities while I am simply replying. How am I rogue? Said Long Chen innocently. At this time, the entourage of the Grand Xia, despite clearly knowing they shouldn't laugh for fear of losing decorum, were unable to help it. It was unknown how hard it was on them to keep their laughter stifled. Seeing those people want to laugh yet also not daring, that woman's fury soared. Long Chen, if you're a man, you'll accept a challenge from me, Li Wanji. So it's you? Long Chen looked at her with disbelief. You know me? Asked Li Wanji icily. No, I just hear people mention you a lot. No wonder my Grand Xia's emperor and princes like to keep themselves busy. I'm suddenly reminded of a certain phrase. A bashful expression appeared on Long Chen's face. Really, Wanji? When Long Chen said that, for words appeared in the Grand Xia's guards' minds. Within the imperial palace, two supreme experts in the midst of drinking tea were unable to bear it and both spat out a mouthful of tea. A couple points here. First of all, Long Chen clearly doesn't know how to play chess because even in Chinese chess, you need to have the king alive, so they didn't have one piece left. More importantly, the pun is that the pieces he named sound like am and is like. So, I rooked your father sounds like I am your father, and your father bishoped me sounds like your father is like me. Your father is like me, I am your father. Ramble, although an argument could be made that the king doesn't count as one of their pieces because in Chinese chess, the king cannot move out of the imperial palace, a 3x3 box located on both sides of the board. Honestly, there's no need to analyze it, because technically, the piece that he had wasn't a rook, it was a guard, a piece that only exists in Chinese chess which is also prohibited from moving out of the imperial palace. As for the bishop, also known as an elephant, it cannot cross the river at the center of the map. Furthermore, the spelling was technically off. So he really doesn't know how to play chess. Is an expression meaning you're very busy. As in you have 10,000 things to do in one day. Her name sounds the same as the last three words, and the first word is slang for fuck, as in have sex with, so it would be fuck Li Wanji. This scoundrel, he really is brazen. He even dares to tease me, the master of the Grand Xia. Xia Yuyang shook his head as he looked at the astonished Long Chen. At this time, Long Chen was covering his mouth with both hands and looking at Li Wanji in exaggerated shock. It was like her name had completely stupefied him. Li Wanji was too refined to even understand what Long Chen was saying. Due to the difference in cultures, she had never even heard that phrase before. In comparison, Han Wenjun, who was deeply familiar with the Grand Xia's culture, immediately understood. He icily said, Long Chen, you go too far. Hey, has there been some mistake? Did I say something? Please don't take a general comment as a personal attack. Your own thoughts have nothing to do with me, said Long Chen righteously. He hadn't said it explicitly. He had only vaguely implied that expression without even saying it. There was no way for Han Wenjun to do anything to him over it. Killing intent raged in Han Wenjun's eyes. He had lost out more from speaking with Long Chen than he had in his entire life. And he didn't even have the ability to strike back. As a result, the atmosphere grew very strange. The Grand Xia's guards looked at Long Chen with reverence and worship. They hated the sanctimonious fellows from the Grand Han the most, especially because their words always contained hidden thorns. Seeing Han Wenjun's hidden thorns be easily destroyed by Long Chen and how infuriated he was by just a few words from Long Chen, they felt incredibly refreshed. Long Chen led the way without saying a word. Han Wenjun, Li Wanji, and the hundreds of people accompanying them also didn't say anything. The atmosphere was tense and heavy. As they followed the central path straight forward, quite a few maidens ended up cheering from the sides. Han Wenjun finally smiled. He began to wave at those maidens and smiled warmly, enticing quite a few sharp cries from them. It went without saying that Han Wenjun's position in the hearts of the Grand Xia's maidens had reached an unprecedented level. Countless maidens worshipped him. Their cheering and cries allowed Han Wenjun to regain his confidence. He constantly waved at them while glancing at Long Chen. A touch of ridicule appeared in Long Chen's eyes. Did this idiot think he was so amazing because he was able to get the adoration of some ignorant maidens who lived in a world of peace and prosperity? Any woman that had really seen the world wouldn't give him a second look. He wasn't a man, nor was he a woman. Long Chen didn't even look at Han Wenjun or pay any attention to those almost fanatical maidens. He simply continued onwards. The Grand Xia's maidens are so welcoming and sharp-eyed. They can tell who's the pearl with just a glance. No matter how conspicuous the place the soybean places itself in, it's still just a bean and won't attract others. Li Wanji approached Long Chen and muttered to herself. Although she didn't know what Long Chen's previous words had meant, just from the expressions on Han Wenjun and their guards' faces, she knew they hadn't been nice words. Now seeing that Han Wenjun was so popular, she once more began to target Long Chen, wanting to use Han Wenjun's charisma to suppress him. All these maidens were focused on Han Wenjun. None of them looked at Long Chen. They can tell who the pig is? Well said. Long Chen didn't retort. Instead, he gave her a thumbs up. Li Wanji didn't even understand what he had said. Thinking he was admitting defeat, she became even more confident, lightly saying, "Compared to the Grand Xia, my Grand Han's men have more flavor." Long Chen nodded. "Yes, there's no way for me to argue against that. The Grand Xia's men truly have no smell. On the other hand, the Grand Han's men are covered in the smell of makeup. It's truly a strong smell." "You're clearly just jealous. Tens of thousands of maidens are cheering for my Prince Wenjun, while you, Long Chen, do you see a single person glancing at you?" sneered Li Wanji. Birds of a feather flock together. Women all like to get closer to themselves, as they find it easier to get along. If this was a crowd of men instead, they'd have long since started fighting over how crowded it was. But look, your Prince Wenjun is so liked by all these maidens. This is the result of women not liking to fight amongst women. They all like to cheer each other on, said Long Chen lightly. Now, no matter how stupid Li Wanji was, she could still tell Long Chen was ridiculing Han Wenjun for being effeminate and not really a man. The reason why the women liked him so much was that they viewed him as a sister. "Long Chen, your mouth really is vicious. You're the one who's not a man," raged Li Wanji. Li Wanji was not actually a part of the Grand Han's imperial family. However, she was a rank 8 celestial, and her position was extremely high in the Grand Han. Her status was almost equivalent to a member of the imperial family. Unable to outtalk Long Chen, she began to launch a personal attack without the slightest finesse. But Long Chen couldn't be bothered to say anything back to her. They continued onward. Following the main road, they quickly reached the imperial city at the center of Grand Xia City. Music began to thrum through the air as entertainers came to greet them in accordance with the etiquette of the Grand Xia. At the entrance into the imperial city, he saw Xia Yunchong, Xia Yuluo, and the other members of the imperial family. Xia Yuluo was in her best clothes and adornments, looking like a lotus flower breaking out of the water. When she saw Han Wenjun, she turned completely red, filled with excitement and delight. "Prince Wenjun has come a long way. Please forgive me for not being able to receive you sooner." The one in charge of receiving them here was not Xia Yunchong, but another prince. Xia Yunchong was focused on the martial path, and he had no heart to control the nation. The third prince, Xia Yunfeng, was currently acting as the crown prince, and so he was the one in charge of receiving them. "Crown Prince Yunfeng is too courteous. I came here in a rush, so I was only able to bring a meager gift. Please accept. Other than that, the 17th princess is about to turn 18. Last year, I asked an artisan to create this ornament. 17th princess, please don't laugh at me for this little gift." Han Wenjun took out 2 cases, one big and one small. The large one was given to Xia Yunfeng. A national gift had to be prepared, and it was usually some kind of local product of the nation. It didn't necessarily have to be very valuable. Xia Yuluo turned red as she received Han Wenjun's case. Thank you. She lightly rubbed the case, her head low. Xia Yuncheng's expression became frosty, a hint of killing intent in his eyes. He knew that Han Wenjun was simply trying to seduce his little sister. And his foolish sister wasn't able to realize the consequences. It was impossible for her to marry Han Wenjun. Han Wenjun was only doing this in order to harm Xia Yuluo. But as her big brother, Xia Yuncheng was helpless to do anything. He wished he could kill this hypocrite Han Wenjun right here and now. To Han Wenjun, whether he succeeded or not, he would only benefit. If he succeeded, he would have pulled over the Grand Xia's princess, who was also a rank 8 celestial. That would be a vicious slap in the Grand Xia's face. If Xia Yuluo tried to marry him but he was unable to bring her away, she would still be executed, and the Grand Xia would lose a talented expert, as well as lose their face. Right now, all Han Wenjun had to do was dote on Xia Yuluo and completely captivate her heart. The deeper his poison got into her heart, the less she would listen to others. Seeing his sister be drawn deeper into Han Wenjun's trap step by step, Xia Yuncheng could practically see his father's butcher blade raised. The hatred in his heart grew even stronger. Please, go ahead and open it. This is a present I meticulously prepared for you. Han Wenjun smiled at Xia Yuluo. It looked like a very warm smile, but looking at it made Long Chen's hair stand on end, and he got goosebumps. Xia Yuluo trembled slightly. She seemed extremely moved as she gently opened the case to see a phoenix hairpin. The phoenix hairpin was a shining golden color with interweaving silver. The two colors made the hairpin almost look alive. Even Long Chen had to admit that it was truly beautiful and definitely had immense power over a woman. Thank you for your gift. I really like it. Many thanks. Xia Yuluo happily looked at the phoenix hairpin in its case. This phoenix hairpin has a total of 9,999 runes that I personally engraved. It took a long time, said Han Wenjun caringly. Fuck, what trash pickup arts. Are you using them in front of me to disgust me? Isn't this far too low grade? And yet, this low-grade tactic ended up working. Seeing Xia Yuluo smiling so happily, Long Chen didn't know what to say. Standing by the door isn't very suitable. Let's enter. If we wait too long, the wine we prepared will get cold, said Long Chen upon seeing Xia Yuncheng's killing intent about to explode. As he had wanted, his words immediately broke the romantic atmosphere. Xia Yuluo glared at Long Chen, but Long Chen was surprised to see that she wasn't actually angry with him. Long Chen is right. The food and drink have already been prepared, and they're just waiting for Prince Wenjun. Xia Yunfeng ended up being the steady one, his polite smile never fading. He gestured courteously to Han Wenjun. Han Wenjun bowed slightly in return and walked side by side with Xia Yunfeng. The others all followed behind them. Long Chen was planning on walking with Xia Yuncheng and saying a few things to him, but instead he was caught by Xia Yuluo. What is it? Are you trying to get revenge on me? Let me tell you, I am currently working under the Emperor's orders, so don't do anything crazy, warned Long Chen. I'm not so petty. Look, do you think this hairpin is pretty? Xia Yuluo opened the case, flaunting it. It's pretty, but it'll be prettier on you. Long Chen really had to admit that the Grand Han's craftsmanship was not bad. When he returned, he would have to get a pile of them to give one to each of his wives. Then these people would see what was truly called a fairy-like beauty. Long Chen helped me put them on. I want to wear it now, said Xia Yuluo. Now's not a good time. People will laugh at you for being so impatient. Long Chen shook his head. Who cares? I want to wear it right now. I want to see what it feels like, said Xia Yuluo. Fine, you're the princess. As soon as you get angry, I get nervous, so I'll help you put it on. Long Chen received the phoenix hairpin and gently inserted it into Xia Yuluo's high bun. Just at this moment, Han Wenjun, who was smiling and talking with Xia Yunfeng at the front, inadvertently turned back to see this. He saw Xia Yuluo holding Long Chen, while Long Chen helplessly put the phoenix hairpin on her. His expression changed, and killing intent appeared in his eyes. On the other hand, Xia Yunfeng and Yuncheng both smiled, a trace of hope appearing in their hearts. Pearl and pig sound similar in Chinese. Flavor and smell are the same term in Chinese. Long Chen, do I look pretty with the phoenix hairpin? Xia Yuluo turned her head back and forth slowly. She looked at Long Chen expectantly. Even if you didn't wear them, you'd still be very beautiful. Long Chen smiled. Xia Yuluo truly was very beautiful. Although she couldn't compare to Meng Qi or Tang Wan, she was definitely a figure capable of bringing about the downfall of a nation. Furthermore, she possessed an innate air of nobility which made her even more attractive. Hee, I'm happy you're learning how to talk properly. Xia Yuluo smiled excitedly, giving Long Chen some rare praise. Are you saying I didn't know how to talk properly before? Demanded Long Chen. Hee, for some unknown reason, I'm happiest when I'm with you. Xia Yuluo smiled. Oh, were you not happy just now? Asked Long Chen. Xia Yuluo turned red. Looking at Han Wenjun's back, she whispered, I used to really like him. Sometimes I even dreamed about him. So I was happy to see him and extremely excited to receive a gift from him. However, I don't know why, but I feel a kind of pressure at the same time that makes my heart uneasy. I think I'm afraid. Afraid of what? Asked Long Chen curiously. I'm not sure. But while being with him does make me very excited, it also gives me a feeling of unease. But being with you, although I'm not happy or excited, I feel very peaceful. It's a very warm kind of feeling. Xia Yuluo looked at Long Chen with a smile. Long Chen raged, do you know how to talk properly? Being with me doesn't make you happy or excited. Then what are you doing entangling me? I'm mad now. If you're so unhappy, then hand over the wine I gave you. Xia Yuluo smiled at Long Chen, who feigned anger. Today, she had finally seen the Han Wenjun she had been thinking about day and night, but now that she did, she felt a strange feeling. She had always greatly adored Han Wenjun. Her room was even filled with portraits of him. She was infatuated with the romantic stories that came from the Grand Han, and she also longed to have a warm, intimate man looking after her. As the princess of the Grand Xia, she didn't have many close relationships. Her father and mother were all busy with politics, while her brothers and sisters were focused on cultivation and studying the ways to rule a nation. The only one who she could count on to spend time with her was her brother Xia Yunchong. But a big brother's love was not enough for a young maiden in the springtime of her youth. The first time she saw that grand, handsome, and tender Han Wenjun, she had been left with a deep impression and unable to extricate herself from it. Then she had become engrossed with the romantic stories that circulated out of the Grand Han. She had longed even more for those kinds of intense romantic feelings. But Long Chen's arrival had unconsciously changed her thoughts. Long Chen was incomparably domineering and didn't pamper her at all. He would scold her, curse her, and make her cry several times out of anger. And yet he also treated her especially well sometimes. He had been willing to split half of that incredibly precious wine with her, making her exceptionally grateful. Furthermore, he was like a deep well. He didn't look very conspicuous on the outside, and yet no one could tell how deep he was. As someone who dared to swindle the wine god palace's people of their wine, he had to have huge guts. The more she was with Long Chen, the less she understood him. He was like a riddle that made her want to solve him. He was sometimes domineering, sometimes amiable, sometimes petty, sometimes magnanimous. Sometimes a sentence from him would make her laugh, and sometimes it would make her cry. Originally, Xia Yuluo hadn't really felt this. But now that she saw Han Wenjun, when she compared the two, she felt the feeling of danger and mystery around Long Chen was much more attractive, making Han Wenjun's charisma seem much weaker. Furthermore, being with Long Chen made her feel peaceful, as if whatever happened, he would be able to handle it easily. Now that Long Chen looked like a child demanding his toy back with his fake anger and his extended hand, she felt it to be extremely funny. Nice try. The things that enter my hands are mine forever. You should give up on that thought, said Xia Yuluo. Just at this time, they entered the inner gate of the imperial city, and there was a red carpet in front of them leading to a grand palace. This palace was used by the Grand Xia to welcome and entertain guests. It was extremely spacious, and once they were inside, They had to go through all kinds of special etiquettes and sequences before they were able to take a seat. This was no ordinary family feast. The tables were low-to-the-ground tables that could only be seated by 2 people on each side. Long Chen wasn't a prince, so he had no qualifications to sit at the top. He found a table for himself that was near the edge. He had only just sat down when a burst of fragrance blew over. Xia Yuluo had actually also come. "Girl, are you drunk? Your spot's up there." Long Chen pointed to the main spots at the front. The banquet hall was split into 2 parts, one for the main characters and one for the minor characters. Naturally, the first part was meant for the princes and princesses. For Xia Yuluo to come here was unsuitable to her status. "You're the one who is drunk. Sitting up there is so constricting. Just the toasting, blessings, salutations, and return etiquettes are enough to exhaust someone to death. I don't want to go through that, so move over a bit. Why is your butt so big? Are you trying to take up 2 seats on your own?" Xia Yuluo forced Long Chen to scooch over. "Aren't you afraid of your imperial father scolding you for this?" asked Long Chen as he moved over. "You think that's possible? He won't even make an appearance in such a banquet," said Xia Yuluo. At this time, everyone had found seats for themselves. Seeing Xia Yuluo take the initiative to sit beside Long Chen made Xia Yunchong and Xia Yunfeng smile at each other. On the other hand, Han Wenjun's expression was now a bit unnatural. He could have accepted Xia Yuluo sitting anywhere except beside Long Chen. Furthermore, she was quietly whispering to him in a questionably intimate manner. But he also couldn't express anything over this. He was sitting beside Li Wanji and he raised his cup. "This first glass of wine is to bless the citizens of the Grand Xia, to wish the Emperor good health, and to the long friendship of the Grand Xia and Grand Han. My imperial father was working hard all day. He's extremely busy and simply does not have the time to greet you personally. Please forgive him for this. But I will represent my imperial father to raise this cup to you." Xia Yunfeng smiled and raised his cup. After he said this, everyone felt the atmosphere change a bit. Li Wanji's expression darkened, as she finally realized why everyone's expressions had grown odd after Long Chen had said that back then. "Long Chen, I challenge you to a battle. If you're a man, you'll accept." Li Wanji glared at Long Chen, looking like she wanted to bite him to death. What was going on? Xia Yunchong, Xia Yuluo, and the other princes and princesses were all startled. They had no idea what was happening because they didn't know about what had happened before. "Brother Wenjun, this..." As the master of this banquet, Xia Yunfeng was the one to ask what was happening. "Long Chen and my friend argued a bit before. Her name is Li Wanji." Han Wenjun also didn't quite know how to explain it, so he did it very vaguely. Hearing her name, Xia Yunfeng and Xia Yunchong both realized what was going on. But the others still didn't quite understand. "This matter was my mistake. I did not know Miss Wanji's name. I apologize." Xia Yunfeng magnanimously took the blame. But in reality he was speechless inside. Who had come up with this name? Was it to intentionally cause trouble with his Grand Xia? "Crown Prince, this matter has nothing to do with you. It is Long Chen who went too far. Moreover, it just so happens that it's a tradition to have a martial competition before a feast. I simply wonder whether Long Chen will agree to exchange some pointers with Li Wanji or not," said Han Wenjun. To have a martial competition before the feast was in reality a friendly exchange of pointers to see who was stronger. The 4 ancient nations had truly done such things in the past. But in the past few years, such martial competitions had grown rarer, and they were replaced with different events. Furthermore, a competition on this level was extremely rare. Li Wanji was a rank 8 celestial, while Long Chen's power was also explosive. Once they fought, it probably wouldn't be so simple as exchanging pointers, especially considering Li Wanji's current expression. "This isn't really appropriate. It could harm our friendship." Xia Yunfeng shook his head. "It's just a way to liven things up. Both sides are aggrieved, so why not have a little fight? However, 10 exchanges is the limit. If a victor is not determined by then, it'll count as a draw." Han Wenjun smiled. "In truth, Long Chen is also a guest of my Grand Xia, and I cannot decide this for him. Xia Yunfeng shook his head. Long Chen, if you're a man, you'll get up and fight me. Don't cower like a turtle in its shell. Li Wanji stood up and pointed at Long Chen. This person goes too far. How can she point at others like this? Long Chen, go put her away. Now, even Xia Yuluo found this unacceptable. Although she was willful, she knew she couldn't point at others when speaking at them. That was an insult, so she encouraged Long Chen to fight. Right now, everyone was looking at Long Chen. Long Chen lazily stood up and stretched. Looking at Li Wanji, he said, "Why bother? From the start, I never said anything that went overboard toward you. Is it worth it for you to persistently force me until I have no choice but to fight you? Intentionally angering me won't bring you any benefits." There's no need to say so much. You disgust me, and I have to properly teach you a lesson today, sneered Li Wanji. You have to teach everyone who disgusts you a lesson? Do you like being disgusted? Since you want to fight, then I'll accompany you. However, when you embarrass yourself, don't cry. Long Chen slowly stood up. You're the one who will be crying. Li Wanji smiled coldly upon seeing Long Chen agree to her challenge. Don't try to kill him. Just make him lose face. You can't kill people here. Han Wenjun sent Li Wanji a secret transmission. Understood. I won't kill him. I'll make sure to only cut off a single arm, replied Li Wanji, a ruthless gleam in her eyes. Since both parties consent, let's start. Don't do anything that would harm our friendship, said Xia Yunfeng. Two balls of light appeared in the palace hall, enveloping the two of them. They suddenly appeared on an ancient martial stage. He uses the same expression used a few chapters ago, Li Wanji, which sounds the same as have sex with Li Wanji. Space trembled as Long Chen and Li Wanji appeared on top of an ancient martial stage. The surroundings of the martial stage were filled with mist so that the two of them couldn't see anything outside the stage. But from the palace hall where Xia Yuluo and the others were, they could see them clearly. There was a projection at the center of the hall showing the martial stage. It was an incredibly clear projection that made it feel like it was the real thing. Even the pressure coming from the two of them could be sensed clearly. Everyone stopped breathing. Every person here was an expert in their own rights, and they all liked to see other experts exchanging blows in order to confirm their own strength. Long Chen, I'll make you pay a price for your words. Li Wanji icily looked at Long Chen, her aura gradually condensing. Runes erupted into existence behind her. Her manifestation appeared, causing immense pressure to crash down on Long Chen. This formless energy was like an invisible hand tightly gripping Long Chen. It was Li Wanji's aura lock. Sensing how easily she had locked him down, she sneered. Looks like I overestimated you. I can beat you in just one move. Her sword came flying out of the scabbard, and people were unable to see how she even unsheathed it. All they saw was a fierce and sharp ray of light shooting toward Long Chen. Sparks flew. Long Chen hadn't released any of his aura. There was a blood-red saber in front of him, blocking Li Wanji's sword. That incredibly powerful attack from Li Wanji was easily blocked by Long Chen, causing everyone to jump in shock. He blocked it with just his physical strength. Xia Yunchong was filled with shock. Although he had given Long Chen a high estimate on his strength, he still hadn't thought Long Chen was this powerful. Even without using his spiritual yuan, he easily blocked this attack. Furthermore, he didn't even budge. It was like all Li Wanji's force was no greater than a dragonfly trying to shake a tree. Her attack wasn't even qualified to shake him. Long Chen's expression was calm, like a rippleless well. He raised his saber, looking at Li Wanji coldly. In truth, he wasn't calm inside. That was because after reaching the fourth heaven stage of foundation forging, his strength was no longer perfectly under his control. He had grown stronger without even sensing it. Because the strengthening of his physical body couldn't match the potency of his 108,000 immortal platforms, he couldn't sense the exact power of his physical body. But today, now that he was fighting, he sensed that the power of his physical body had unconsciously risen. Take another attack from me. Li Wanji leaped into the air, hacking her sword down. This time sword light exploded and the void was torn apart. Boom! Li Wanji's attack shook the martial stage, and a chi wave erupted, causing all the disciples in the palace hall to jump and hastily raise their hands to block it. But they quickly laughed involuntarily. What they were seeing was simply a projection of another space. It looked realistic, but none of their power could reach them, let alone menace them. When the chi wave scattered, they were once more shocked. The expressions of the experts from the Grand Han all changed. At this time, Long Chen was standing there, still with his emotionless expression. The angle of his saber hadn't shifted at all. Blood Drinker was blocking Li Wanji's sword. How is this possible? The Grand Han's experts were filled with shock. Long Chen still hadn't released his aura. He was just using his physical strength. Li Wanji was an extremely powerful expert within the Grand Han. She was the strongest junior genius besides the three monarchs. With a cultivation base at the 8th heaven stage of foundation forging, as an innate rank 8 celestial, she possessed incredible power. The Grand Han placed a great deal of importance on raising her. But now, she didn't even have the qualifications to shake Long Chen. How could they not be shocked? So he really was powerful. You just couldn't tell from his appearance. Xia Yoluo's heart was shaken as she watched. Her spiritual perception had sensed that Long Chen was an extremely terrifying existence. It had told her that he had immense power that he hadn't revealed yet. But then after her first encounter with him, he had been nothing more than a laughing scoundrel without the slightest propriety. He didn't have the slightest air of an expert. Then in the Wine God Palace, he had acted like a complete swindler. After taking their wine, that petty, pleased smile of his had made Xia Yuluo forget he was a terrifying expert. Now Li Wanji had attacked him twice, but Long Chen was like an immovable mountain. The current Long Chen seemed like a different person compared to his normally laughing self. Although he had yet to even attack, that domineering air in his bones was already starting to manifest. Normally, he was like a friendly neighbor, amiable and approachable, giving people a harmless feeling. But once he started fighting, he instantly became an explosive battle god, looking disdainfully down on all. This instantaneous change in styles gave people an intense visual image. It also made their spirits shake. Faint energy was coiling around Long Chen, causing the space around him to look like water that was slowly heating up. The fluctuations grew stronger and stronger. Long Chen ignored the furious Li Wanji. Right now, he was sensing the changes in his body. Under the pressure Li Wanji was emitting, his 108,000 immortal platforms were automatically circulating, almost like self-protection. Their energy was pouring through him. This energy was not the energy in his 4 chi Cs, but the core energy of his immortal platforms. Long Chen was finally experiencing the huge changes in his body after he had advanced to the 4th heaven stage of foundation forging. Just the power of his physical body made him twice as powerful as he had been at the 3rd heaven stage. The reason he was unable to sense the changes in his physical strength was because the power of his immortal platforms had risen to over 10 times greater than when he had been at the 3rd heaven stage. The disproportionate growth caused him to not feel like his physical body was strengthening. The growth of his physical body was unable to keep up with the requirements of the 9-star hegemon body art. But even though it was unable to keep up with his immortal platforms, his physical strength was still incredible now. Arrogant bastard, you're looking down on me? The runes behind her suddenly became berserk, and a boundless force crashed down on Long Chen. Li Wanji's expression was extremely unsightly. Her goal was to humiliate Long Chen and force him to use his trump cards. But even after 2 attacks, Long Chen hadn't moved. It was like he was playing with a child. How was she supposed to accept this? She began to truly use the power of her cultivation base. Divine Ring. A 4-colored divine ring appeared behind Long Chen, unleashing divine might. The world changed color, and in that instant, everyone in the palace hall was filled with awe. It was sacred, powerful, and imposing. In front of this divine ring, they all felt as minuscule as ants. Even Xia Yuluo and Xia Yunchong, who had already seen Long Chen fight, were filled with shock. The power Long Chen had displayed so far was many times greater than when he had fought back then. As expected, this fellow was hiding his strength. Xia Yuluo involuntarily clenched her fists, her eyes full of excitement. Although Long Qin normally seemed like a sloppy scoundrel, under his divine ring, he now seemed possessed by a battle god, making her feel a sense of worship. 4-star battle armor. Boom. Suddenly, heaven and earth's energy seemed to boil. It was like lava exploding, like an ocean was spurting into the air out of Long Chen's feet. Li Wanji was blown back just by this power, an unhealthy redness appearing on her face. Even without Long Chen attacking her, she was injured. Qi waves were constantly soaring out of Long Chen, crashing against heaven and earth, causing the world to shake. Right now, Long Chen wasn't holding back. He had unleashed the power of his immortal platforms, and there almost seemed to be an invisible flame burning around Long Chen, causing the space around him to twist and making his figure indistinct. Heavens, what kind of monster is he? Even the Grand Xia's experts were awed. They had never seen such a domineering yet berserk energy. Just this aura of his could threaten the lives of ordinary foundation forging experts. They might be directly killed just by approaching. Han Wenjun's expression changed slightly. He hadn't expected Long Chen to be so strong. Although he had heard that Long Chen had killed several soul transformation experts in the Eastern Sea, that was because he had devoured a self-destructive medicinal pill. Furthermore, he had only killed a few of the heaven-suppressing magic sex experts in a messy battle. That wasn't something to be curious about, because the heaven-suppressing magic sex experts all had weak physical bodies. But the power Long Chen was displaying now shocked him. Let alone him, even Long Chen himself was shocked. At this time, he felt bursts of pain all over his body as the energy of his immortal platforms charged through his meridians, making it feel like they would explode. Now he was finally experiencing the drawbacks of having his physical body not keep up with the growth of the 9-star hegemon body art. Boom. Li Wanji was appalled. Putting away her disdain, she slashed her sword at Long Chen. Long Chen's saber danced. No matter what angle Li Wanji tried to attack from, no matter what move she used, she was blocked by his saber. Consecutive explosive sounds rang out. No matter how marvelous Li Wanji's attack was, she would be forced back by a slash of Long Chen's saber. Long Chen's feet never moved a step. Boom. Long Chen once more slashed his saber, feeling like his body was turning numb. That wasn't due to his opponent, but because his body was unable to endure his own power. It's been 10 exchanges already. There's no need to continue fighting. Forcing back Li Wanji, Long Chen rested Blood Drinker on his shoulder lazily. Did they think they could test his true power? They could keep dreaming. Bastard, taste another one of my attacks, roared Li Wanji suddenly, her face twisted. Blood chi exploded out of her, and her sword unleashed radiant light as it slashed toward him. She activated her spirit blood. Startled cries rang out from within the palace hall. Activating the spirit blood was the trump card of a celestial, signifying they were going all out. This was no longer an exchange of pointers. Xia Yunfeng's expression sank. This woman from the Grand Han was like an unreasonable shrew. He could see that Li Wanji had no assurance of killing Long Chen and was simply trying to force him into revealing his true power. Because Long Chen was not a celestial, it was harder to guess his trump cards. Thus, being able to force one out would reduce his threat. Xia Yunfeng didn't want to see that, so he took out a jade plate. Just as he was about to use it to force the two of them apart, he received a secret transmission that made him put it away. Having activated her spirit blood, Li Wanji's power sword. Sword light gathered around her as she launched an incredibly sharp attack. Since you want to die, I'll help you out. Long Chen snorted and suddenly shot toward Li Wanji just as her sword was slashing down. Boom. The sound of a body being cut apart rang out. When the blinding light in the air faded, they saw Long Chen standing in the air, his saber dyed in blood. From the air, a head and a headless body slowly fell. Courting death, roared Han Wenjun. Seeing Li Wanji's head had been cut off, his killing intent exploded. The others were all filled with shock. They hadn't been able to see what had just happened. Just how had Li Wanji's head been cut off? Runes appeared in the air, connecting Li Wanji's head with her body, allowing everyone to breathe with relief. Long Chen had only cut Li Wanji's head off as a warning. He hadn't destroyed her soul, sparing her life. In that kind of situation, as long as Long Chen had added his spiritual strength into his attack, then with the power contained in the saber, he would have instantly killed Li Wanji. Everyone was shocked. In the 10 exchanges, Long Chen had only defended. But when he had wanted to, he had taken off Li Wanji's head. This scene was too shocking, so shocking that no one knew what to say. Xia Yolo's hands were gripping her chest. It felt like her heart would jump out. That last attack of Long Chen's had caused light and runes to fill the air, making it so no one could see what had happened. At the same time, she thought of when she had been quarreling with Long Chen and just about to raise her sword against him. At that time, Long Chen had said that he could kill her within 3 moves. She had been intimidated at the time, but then she still hadn't believed it afterward. Now though, seeing this, she knew that as long as he had willed it, there would no longer be a Li Wanji in this world. Xia Yuluo turned a bit pale as she thought of that, but then she involuntarily smiled. How could Long Chen possibly kill her? 2 figures reappeared in the palace hall. They were Long Chen and Li Wanji. Long Chen sat back down in his spot as if nothing had happened. But Li Wanji was pale white, and there was still blood around her neck. Her previous waist-length hair now only reached her ears. Death Qi was lingering around her forehead. That was because although Long Chen had shown mercy, the power contained within his saber had still harmed her soul. Having your head cut off was like going through a false death. This injury to her soul would take a long time to recover. Having just had a brush with death, Li Wanji was filled with terror. Just standing there, she quivered, not daring to look at Long Chen. Someone, come help Miss Li Wanji change her clothes. Xia Yunfeng waved his hands, and 2 maids came over and led her away. Li Wanji's body also had bloodstains, which wasn't very suitable for this banquet. Rather than saying they were helping her change clothes, it was more accurate to say they were giving her some time to calm down. After all, not everyone was capable of being indifferent to life and death. It was the people who viewed other people's lives to be like stalks of grass that cherished their own lives the greatest. Long Chen, how did you do that final move? Xia Yuluo poured Long Chen a cup of wine, fawning over him to hear this. She hadn't been able to see how he had won. In fact, no one in the palace hall had been able to see it clearly. In truth, when Long Chen had attacked at that final moment, he had used flame and lightning runes to block other people's sight. He had used the arm bracer to block Li Wanji's sword while using his saber to cut her head off. However, Li Wanji's move truly had been powerful. Long Chen had also paid a price. The arm he had used to block her had been turned to pulp. But Long Chen had instantly healed it, making it so no one could see it. And the reason he had been injured was not truly because of Li Wanji's power. It was because his physical body was unable to perfectly match the power of his immortal platforms, making it difficult for him to control. Hand back my wine and I'll tell you. Long Chen refused to say. The arm bracer and boots were his secret weapons. He couldn't expose them to anyone, because they might save his life one day. Keep dreaming. If you don't want to tell me, then fine. Who cares? Xia Yuluo wouldn't fall for such a thing. She felt that Long Chen had simply used some kind of secret move. She wasn't enemies with Long Chen, so exchanging all that good wine for this secret was definitely not worth it. At this time, the expressions of the people from the Grand Han were a bit unsightly. This slap in their face had been too vicious. Cutting off a person's head was the greatest humiliation. Long Chen, let me raise a cup for you. To defeat a woman and even cut off her head, you truly are a hero. At this time, one of the Grand Han's experts mockingly raised his cup to Long Chen. Xia Yolua's expression changed. This person was tasteless. After losing, he launched a personal attack. She was just about to speak when Long Chen held her back. As a princess, she shouldn't furiously shout at somebody or it would be lacking decorum. Long Chen indifferently said, "First, you don't have the qualifications to toast to me, so you should sit. Second, the cultivation world doesn't differentiate between men or women. The only thing that matters is whether you're weak or strong. Just hearing your tone, it's clear you're an idiot who has lived a far too peaceful life. You clearly don't know the cruelty of the battlefield, or you wouldn't say such a brainless thing. Third, so what if she's a woman? Are you looking down on women? Is your mother not a woman? Is your grandmother not a woman? Your discrimination makes you forget your roots. A sheep kneels in thanks to its mother, a bird repays its mother in its old age. Even a beast knows how to be thankful to their mother, while you are less than a beast. You think you're fit to toast to me? Absolutely shameless. Long Chen's words made the Grand Xia's experts want to cheer. This retort was marvelous, with the first and final points even connecting. In truth, Grand Han's romantic stories did not really represent the Grand Han. Their discrimination toward the young and female was extremely great. Amongst the commoners, women didn't even have the right to sit at the table when eating. They had to sit by the kitchen while doing so. Those romantic stories were games played by the aristocrats. As for the expert who had offered a toast to Long Chen, his background was only ordinary, and his discrimination was deep-rooted. But his insult that Long Chen bullied women ended up being turned back on him until he felt himself to be less than a beast. In truth, this fellow simply didn't know how terrifying women could be. But as for Long Chen, from the eastern wasteland to the central plains, he had encountered countless powerful women. Leng Yuan was the strongest of them all. If this person had dared to say that he looked down on women in front of Leng Yuan, it would be impressive if he could keep a single bone to bury. Thinking of Leng Yuan, Long Chen was put in a strange mood. He didn't know whether this woman, who was both so beautiful and so vicious that she could take a person's life, was still alive. How was there no news about her at all? Even Long Chen was a bit afraid to see Leng Yuan, but he also wanted to see her a bit. The woman was too vicious and too stimulating. Just as Long Chen was thinking of Leng Yuan, that person from the Grand Han was pointing at Long Chen, not knowing what to say. The stories say that your Grand Han's men are all refined and elegant, quiet men who do things meticulously and carefully. But did your parents never teach you that when eating, you should only stand when making a toast? If you're not, you should be seated. Also, you're never supposed to point at people when speaking to them, because it's very rude. Don't tell me those stories your Grand Han likes to tell are just for others to hear while you really act in a completely different way? Long Chen shook his head. You bully. That person put away his hand, but even after a long time, he was unable to come up with anything. The Grand Xia's people almost laughed. Xia Yunchong looked at Long Chen with a faint smile as he crossed verbal swords with the Grand Han's people. He prostrated himself in admiration toward Long Chen for his skill in this regard. Are you even a man? If you are, you should be magnanimous. Don't your stories say that your Grand Han's men are all modest gentlemen who don't like fighting with words? Your current appearance doesn't live up to that. Furthermore, aren't the Grand Han's men supposed to be brave warriors willing to sacrifice themselves to defend the honor and dignity of the commoners? If you were a gentleman, you should have simply smiled slightly and not quibbled. If you were a brave warrior, you should have challenged me to a life-and-death battle to protect your honor. But you're unable to remain calm and you're a coward. In the end, you're jumping up and down like a monkey. What are you doing? Are you waiting for people to toss you a few coins? Sneered Long Chen. All right, that's enough. Long Chen, these are guests, so don't go too hard on them. Xia Yunfeng finally interrupted. If this continued, the atmosphere would grow too tense. However, although his words seemed like he was advising Long Chen, his words also subtly told the Grand Han's side not to be unreasonable. He was truly worthy of being the crown prince. Han Wenjun was infuriated, but he was unable to get a word in edgewise. Rashly butting in would hurt his face once more. Fortunately, Xia Yunfeng knew how to control things. Suppressing the tension, he clapped his hands, and over 10 beautiful dancers appeared. Ancient, beautiful music filled the air. The music and dancing marked the true beginning of the banquet. All kinds of delicacies were brought up, and fine wine filled their cups. However, although this wine was also excellent and made by the wine god palace's disciples, it was just ordinary wine to them. It didn't contain any realm within it. To Long Chen, Xia Yunchong, and Xia Yuluo who had drunk those disciples' best wines, it tasted more like water. But the Grand Han's people were immediately filled with praise as they drank it. At this time, Li Wanji returned, much calmer than before. But she still didn't dare to look at Long Chen. The Wine God Palace offered some of their wine for the Grand Xia's national events to entertain guests. But this wine could not be sold or bought, it could only be gifted. But there was no way the Grand Xia would gift the Grand Han any of this wine. Considering their tense relationship, just giving them some to drink right now was not bad. That was why the Grand Han's people found it almost impossible to taste the Wine God Palace's wine. The majority of these people were tasting it for the first time. Now, they were doing their best to fill their stomachs with as much of it as possible, as if drinking just a little bit more was benefiting them. Long Chen even saw someone stealthily put a half-full jug of wine into their spatial ring. However, just a bit later, one of the attendants who came to fill up their wine saw that one of the jugs was missing. According to the rules, they had to replace the old jug with a new jug. All the jugs were counted. The Wine God Palace's wine jugs were special. They could be considered similar to medicinal cauldrons. The longer they were used, the more effective their sealing effect grew and the more precious they became. So the Wine God Palace had to take back their wine jugs. The two maidens were holding new wine jugs. They looked at the two men of the Grand Han. For a moment, they didn't know what to say. Without the wine jugs, they couldn't give them new wine. What are you looking at? Someone already took away our wine jugs just now. Hurry up and pour us the new wine. The man who had stolen the wine also felt something was off, and his embarrassment became anger as he shouted. He didn't know that while he could drink this wine, he couldn't take the wine jugs. They were even more precious than the wine, and losing one or breaking one was a huge crime. The two attendants' expressions became unsightly. They didn't know what to say and just lowered their heads, not saying anything. They didn't leave, but they also didn't put down the wine jugs in their hands. What do you think you're doing? Are you saying I stole your wine? Raged that man. Brother, you misunderstand. They don't want your wine, they want that wine jug. If they're missing a wine jug, they'll at least be kicked out of the imperial city. A heavy punishment would be imprisonment. You can keep the wine you took, but you should hand over the wine jug. Do you have to make things hard on these two palace maidens? Said Long Chen, unable to keep watching. What nonsense. Aren't you still saying that I stole the wine? Raged that person. He had decided to refuse to admit it no matter what, because there was no way for him to admit to it. If he did, it would be too embarrassing. Luo, now you see, the real Grand Han's men aren't refined gentlemen. After taking things, they refuse to even admit to it. Now they want two pitiable palace maidens to take the blame for it. I trust that even a child of the Grand Xia wouldn't do such a shameless thing. Long Chen looked at Xia Yuluo helplessly. Xia Yuluo looked from this man to Han Wenjun. A distant expression appeared in her eyes. It seemed her beautiful dreams about the Grand Han's arrival this time had been shattered. Pu Buqing, shut your mouth. Hand it over or I'll immediately kill you, ordered Han Wenjun, his expression dark. That Pu Buqing fellow immediately turned listless. He could only take out the wine jug from his spatial ring. I'm sorry everyone. This wine is just too good, and I wanted to leave some behind for my father. My apologies, said Pu Buqing extremely ashamedly. This game again. Who do you think you're fooling with such a thing? What a grand excuse to mask your own selfish desires. But seeing Xia Yolua's anger fade, Long Chen knew that this foolish girl had fallen for it. Leave. From now on, you're no longer a member of my Grand Han, said Han Wenjun coldly. Grand Prince, please give me a chance. Pu Buqing turned pale, his voice trembling. Pu Buqing was simply doing his filial piety. It can count as forgivable. Prince Wenjun, you should be lenient, said Xia Yunfeng. As the host, he should do something as his guest beat a nobody. Otherwise, he wouldn't appear magnanimous enough. Shouldn't you thank the Crown Prince? Snorted Han Wenjun to Pu Buqing. Pu Buqing immediately kowtowed and said 1,000 thanks to Xia Yunfeng. Just like that, his offense of trying to steal the wine was excused, and he even received a name for being devoted to his father. Long Chen grumbled inside over how ridiculous that was. After this, the atmosphere once more grew a bit awkward. The banquet ended in that awkward atmosphere, and everyone moved on to the Grand Xia's heavenly cloud platform. This heavenly cloud platform was also called the star-peering platform. Not only was it the tallest building in the Grand Xia, but it also possessed great historical significance. It was a soaring tower that pierced the clouds. From the top, it was possible to overlook the scenery of the Grand Xia. It was the best observation tower in the Grand Xia. It was also a grand place for cultural exchange. There was a huge stage at the front. Long Chen and the others sat down, and the dancers began to put on a beautiful show. Once this grand dance was finished, the true cultural exchange between the two nations began. Beautiful women from the Grand Han also went onto the stage and danced. Then they showed all kinds of different talents and skills. Once one side was done, the other side started. This was Long Chen's first time seeing such a display. Very quickly, the Grand Han began to show their opera skills. An intense and passionate melodramatic love story unfolded on the stage. Within the story, the male lead was a rich young prince, while the female lead was a lowly farmer girl. A coincidental meeting caused the sparks of love to fly between the two of them without any reason. The sparks grew brighter until it was blinding. In the end, due to the difference in status, the male lead encountered all kinds of obstructions and pressures. Just at that moment, a woman even more beautiful than the female lead appeared, one who was even more talented and did her best to pursue the male lead. But the male lead only liked the farmer girl, and he went all out to bring her into his circle. Then all kinds of bad people appeared in his circle and targeted the farmer girl. Another grand prince also appeared by the farmer girl's side, one who also liked her. The farmer girl had to go through all kinds of contrived melodrama in order to end up with the male lead. To sum it up, there were always some unsolvable misunderstandings between the male and female leads. Whenever they were about to get past their problems, they would be interrupted. The bad people were always smart, while the good people were always kind and foolish. The bad people were constantly causing trouble for the good people, but the miraculous thing was, the good people still managed to end up together, while the bad people either ended up reformed or shooting themselves in the foot, killing themselves. In order to study the Grand Han's culture, Long Chen watched seriously. In the end, the male lead and female lead finally ended up together, and the male lead said, "After thousands of bumps, after all these twists and turns, I finally reached today." Hearing this, Long Chen almost shit himself. "Fuck, you were clearly the stupid one who jumped into the obvious traps over and over again. You couldn't tell between the good and bad people, and you simply repeatedly trusted the bad people, harming the good people. This kind of brainless and contrived plot could only pique the interest of those children who lived a far too peaceful life. If such characters were placed in the merciless struggle of the cultivation world, Long Chen swore he would change his name if they could live to adulthood. What made Long Chen speechless was that Xia Yuluo was constantly wiping away tears, clearly completely enthralled in it. He had an urge to slap her. Had she gone completely brainless to believe such a melodramatic story? He saw several other princesses quietly sobbing as well. He supposed the Grand Han's ability in this regard did impress him. Looking at the men from the Grand Xia, he saw quite a few of them with tears in their eyes as well. But that wasn't from being moved, but from yawning. They were bored. This kind of plot made them incredibly sleepy. "Long Chen, what's with that expression? Don't you feel like it was very moving?" It was so difficult for them to get past all those setbacks and enticements. But they still unwaveringly trusted each other. "This trust makes the perfect love," rebuked Xia Yuluo upon seeing Long Chen's disapproving expression. "Love shouldn't be an intense oath. In truth, it is as simple as quiet companionship. Perhaps that's different from your ideal dreams, but you should try comparing reality to dreams. True love should be simple. Both sides guard over each other, occasionally fighting and bickering. They are all parts of love." Long Chen shook his head. The only kinds of people who loved such melodramatic things were people who had gotten used to peaceful lives and wanted stimulation. As for Long Chen, he was the opposite. He was normally so stimulated that he was on the verge of dying, so stimulated that it drove him crazy. He longed for a peaceful life. He wished he could go live in the secluded mountains with his lovers without worrying about anything. But people like Xia Yuluo who lived peaceful lives felt their lives to be boring, and they wished for a romantic yet also thrilling love. But in this world, being able to escape from peril every single time like that only existed in stories. She would never realize the price for true stimulation. It was a case of someone ignorant not knowing fear. You're too old to talk to. Unable to reach a consensus with Long Chen, Xia Yuluo left him and ran over to chatter with the other princesses. After this play was over, the cultural exchange continued. One of those was chess. Seeing the chess pieces, Long Chen's expression became odd. He also sensed Han Wenjun glaring at him, his eyes as sharp as blades. He was still engrossed with the "your father is like me, I am your father" story. Long Chen ignored him. If he came over, he wouldn't mind telling an even more marvelous story. The Grand Xia and Grand Han's people displayed their singing and poetry, their skills in Go and chess, their scholarly knowledge, etc. Long Chen was watching with interest, as this kind of cultural inheritance was enthralling. When he encountered a marvelous experience, he would also clap along. Some people from the Grand Han began to challenge Long Chen. Other than chess, they challenged him to an exchange of pointers. But Long Chen ignored them. The main thing was that Long Chen had no skill in those things, and he wouldn't give them a chance to slap his face. I have some insignificant skill in the zither, and I heard that Mr. Long Chen is very skilled in musical theory. I hope Mr. Long Chen can grace me with his wisdom. Suddenly, a red-robed maiden appeared on the stage, holding an ancient zither. She directly started to target Long Chen. Not waiting for Long Chen to reply, the woman started playing her zither. The melodious zither music reverberated through the air, and the sound waves spread throughout the majority of Grand Xia City. Countless experts in the city gazed into the distance at the heavenly cloud platform. That zither music seemed to possess its own will that was giving them food for thought. Long Chen, you're actually skilled in music theory? How did she know that? Do you know her? Xia Yuluo suspiciously looked at Long Chen. I also find it strange. Even I didn't know I was proficient in music theory, exclaimed Long Chen with shock. A chuckle escaped Xia Yuluo's lips, and she lightly beat him, warning, now's not the time to mess around. She'll definitely ask you for pointers once she is done, so prepare yourself. No need to worry. Could such a thing pose any difficulty to me, Long Chen? She's looking down on me far too much. Long Chen puffed out his chest. You have a way to deal with her? Asked Xia Yuluo with surprise. A tactical escape. You busy yourself while I leave. Long Chen stood up to leave, but Xia Yuluo pulled him back down. You're running from a battle. How can you act like this? How will you even raise your head in the future? Demanded Xia Yuluo. Why would I raise my head? It's tiring. Long Chen shrugged. Think of some way to handle her. You're so smart, you can definitely deal with her, right? Said Xia Yuluo expectantly. That's not very likely. Of the 7 apertures, I am only skilled in 6. I have no assurance, said Long Chen gravely. Being skilled in 6 of them is already extremely amazing. Wait, are you saying you don't even know one? Xia Yuluo reacted after a moment. Exactly. When it came to music, Long Chen truly knew nothing. So fleeing was definitely the best choice. But you can't just escape, or it'll lose the face of our Grand Xia. Right now, you're one of the Grand Xia's generals, so you can't run. Xia Yuluo kept a tight hold of Long Chen as if afraid he would slip away right this instant. Long Chen found it funny. This girl was too pure-hearted. Sometimes, she couldn't even tell a joke and thought he really was running. Primal chaos split at the beginning. Yang formed the heavens, Yin formed the earth, Yin and Yang divided, heaven and earth facing. Just at this moment, a sweet singing sound began to accompany the zither music. That woman was actually singing while playing. Her singing was very nice, and her song was a scripture containing the essence of the world. As her voice resounded in people's ears, they felt their mental realms rising. She was truly powerful. Once this song was over, everyone had to nod in praise. This song was truly amazing. If they could hear this song continuously, their mental realms would rapidly rise. Mr. Long Chen, Please give me some pointers. The woman looked toward Long Chen. She stayed standing on the stage, refusing to get off. Long Chen frowned. Did she really have to act like this? He didn't recall any personal enmity between them. Why would she force him like this? Miss, you are forcing me. Long Chen bitterly smiled. I've long since heard that Mr. Long Chen's skill in the music Dao is extremely profound. I truly want to hear your appraisal. The woman looked at Long Chen sincerely, but while that sincerity might be able to trick others, it wasn't able to trick Long Chen. Xia Yunchong and the others were surprised to see this woman view Long Chen so highly. They hadn't expected Long Chen to have such a skill. Han Wenjun sneered. The higher he raised Long Chen, the better it would feel to knock him on the ground. Miss, where did you hear that I'm skilled in musical theory? Long Chen smiled a smile that was not a smile at the woman. She looked at him. For some unknown reason, her heart pounded wildly when Long Chen was staring at her. She couldn't lie while looking at Long Chen. However, she did have guts. She smiled and bowed toward Long Chen, lowering her head to avoid his gaze. Mr. Long Chen, you don't need to be humble. Could it be that you refuse to give me any pointers? Since you want to force me like this despite the fact that we don't have any enmity, I won't stand on courtesy. Long Chen had never been afraid of bragging. Words began to flow from his mouth. Alright, you're right. My humble self began studying literature at 3 and martial arts at 4, at 5 I could recite poetry and songs, at 6 I could kill chickens and pigs, at 7 I could slaughter dragons and tigers, at 8 I saw through the mundane world of dust and began to study the various musical arts. When it comes to the music Dao, from the heights of the heavens to the depths of the earth, the zither, the guqin, the lute, the morning bells, the evening drum, there is none that I am not skilled in. Long Chen's bragging caused these people's ears to buzz and their eyes to see stars. Some of them even had their hair stand on end. At first, they were truly shocked by Long Chen. But then Long Chen's words came out like a torrent, and he bragged for a full 2 hours without repeating a single phrase. Now they all finally realized he was just bragging. But to be able to bring bragging to this level, it could also count as a divine ability. The most amazing thing was that Long Chen didn't even bat an eye. Eventually, even Long Chen ran out of bragging words and came to a stop. Everyone was silent, feeling dizzy from his bragging. As expected, Grandmaster Long Chen truly is amazing. I prostrate myself in admiration toward you. Grandmaster Long Chen, can you give me some pointers? The woman waited for Long Chen to finish bragging. The sneer on her face was unconcealable. She directly called him Grandmaster. The more Long Chen bragged, the more face he would lose in a bit. This was what she and Han Wenjun wanted to see. Xia Yuluo was worried. She knew Long Chen knew nothing about musical theory. He had sealed his own path. Do you really want me to evaluate you? Long Chen smiled. Please, Grandmaster Long Chen. The woman bowed expectantly. All right, then I'll give you an evaluation. I will use 2 words to describe your music just now. Long Chen raised 2 fingers. Absolute trash. Everyone's expressions changed, especially that woman's. She turned ashen out of rage, and she glared at Long Chen. Ha! I've bitterly trained in the zither for 18 years. It's my first time hearing someone evaluate my music as absolute trash. Interesting, she sneered. Without a master to guide you, you'd still be trash after training 180 years. This has nothing to do with how long you train. A snail can train for 18,000 years and it still wouldn't be fast. The reason no one has evaluated your music as trash is because those people were just fawning over you, or perhaps you don't let many people listen to your music. All it proves is your own lack of experience. As a master of music, you use the music Dao to peer into the heavenly Daos. The goal is to combine the body and the Dao, to have the heart reach a natural realm, to have no faults, to have no impurities. But what about you? We don't even know each other, but you followed someone else's orders and used your music Dao to target me. Ask yourself, do you really feel no guilt? As a person, you're trash, so how could you possibly play a divine song? Do you think others are as brainless as you? Sneered Long Chen. The expressions of all the Grand Han's experts changed. This time, Long Chen's words were direct and clearly cursing them. You. The woman's expression also changed and she pointed at Long Chen. What you? Even you are in the habit of pointing at others when speaking? As expected, you're all from the same place. But in order to convince you, now that I'm done speaking about your personal character, I'll speak on your work. The zither song you played is called the Divine Sealing Soul Calming Song, while the song you sang was the Supreme Senses chapter of the Great Wasteland Western Scripture. It recorded the comprehension left behind by a supreme existence before they ascended. However, the scripture is damaged and too difficult to understand. Only 1,000th of the original remains, and both the beginning and ending have been lost, making it so no one has been able to comprehend it. Let alone you with your foundation forging cultivation base, even a life-star expert is unable to comprehend the profundities within it. The reason you sang that song was purely to show off. Long Chen's words caused the people's hearts to shake. It seemed his previous evaluation hadn't been deliberately insulting. He had the facts to back it up. Amongst these people, only a few had heard of the Great Wasteland Western Scripture, let alone the Supreme Senses chapter within it. But looking at the zither-playing girl's shocked expression, they could tell his words were spot on. Xia Yuluo also jumped in shock. Long Chen had clearly said that he didn't know anything about music. But then how was he able to say so much? In truth, Long Chen really had no understanding of musical theory. But the song this woman had played was something he was very familiar with. That was because someone had once sent him a section of the Divine Sealing Soul Calming Song. That person was someone he had encountered by chance in the Eastern Wasteland, Ziyen. That song had been extremely beneficial to the Dragonblood Legion back then, which was why he remembered each beat within it. As for the Supreme Senses chapter of the Great Wasteland Western Scripture, that was something he had seen in the Shen Dao sect. It was not a cultivation technique, nor was it a secret art. Instead, it was an ancient text. Back then, he had been given the approval of the Xian master to go through the hidden scripture pavilion's ancient texts. He had flipped through them all. It wasn't because Long Chen was so studious, but because he had been hoping to find records pertaining to the 9-star hegemon body art. Regretfully, he hadn't found anything. But due to his memory, he hadn't forgotten the texts he had read. It was precisely because he had read so many of those ancient texts that he had been able to swindle the Wine God Palace's disciples of their wine. Within the ancient texts had been many profound principles that were all difficult to understand. They sounded simple, yet each word had multiple meanings, and the principles contained within them were sources of great enlightenment. So Long Chen was familiar with the zither music and singing of this woman, which had given him his confidence. So despite knowing this had been a trap, he had still jumped into it to slap his opponent's face. I heard the Divine Sealing Soul Calming Song years ago. The playing of that person was true divine ability. It was able to draw people into an artistic realm. She was thousands of times better than you. Then as for your singing, your sound Dao, your vocal range isn't wide enough. This kind of high difficulty scripture is out of your league. Your playing was average, your singing was average, and you were unable to form any resonance between them, nor were you able to bring people into that kind of artistic realm. Tell me, don't you think your performance was absolute trash? Demanded Long Chen. Don't try to act so above and aloof. Who doesn't know how to nitpick? If you have any ability, put on your own performance for us to see. Raged the infuriated woman. Long Chen smiled slightly. He had known she would say such a thing. Fortunately, he had the photographic jade Ziyen had sent him. He was just about to show off a bit more and play it. Although it wouldn't be a personal performance, he had slapped his opponent's face enough already. Which esteemed guest is gracing my Grand Xia city with their presence? Just as Long Chen was about to take out the photographic jade, a majestic voice resounded throughout all of Grand Xia city. What shocked Long Chen was that this voice belonged to the Grand Xia's emperor. Long Chen and the others were shocked. Just who had arrived that was able to disturb even the emperor and make him use such a respectful tone? The disciples of the elusive music immortal palace greet his majesty of the Grand Xia. Suddenly, A voice like immortal music rang out. Just this voice was able to make others feel an artistic feeling. Each word contained an implicit charm of the cry of the heavenly Taos. Hearing it made people feel at peace. So it's disciples from the immortal palace, no wonder. Please, come into the palace hall and we can catch up. Xia Yuyang's voice rang out, causing all the people's expressions to change. Even the Grand Xia's emperor would take the initiative to receive mere disciples? What was going on? Han Wenjun and Xia Yunchong were no exceptions to being shocked. But after being shocked, they were delighted. The elusive music immortal palace was a power that had the inheritance of a true immortal. Each of their disciples was incredibly powerful, and most importantly, they all had an immortal charm around them. Even the movements of their hands could contain the flow of the heavenly Taos. Most importantly, their music Tao was similar to the wine god palace's wine Tao. It was something cultivators longed for in their dreams. That was why hearing that they came from the elusive music immortal palace shocked and delighted all these people. Why would such people come to the Grand Xia? I wouldn't dare. I only came because I heard the sound of music. If I've offended you, please forgive me, replied a woman's voice. For it to be a chance meeting is fate. It just so happens that the youth of my Grand Xia and the Grand Han are having a cultural exchange right now. I would be delighted if Fairy could come up to the heavenly cloud platform and give them some pointers, said Xia Yuyang. I wouldn't dare to say I could give pointers. But I do want to experience the skills of the youth of the Grand Xia and Grand Han, said that woman. Please go ahead. Suddenly, the heavenly cloud platform shook, and over 10 beautiful figures appeared on it. These women all wore white dresses and were extremely beautiful. They were like people who had walked out of a painting. Their appearance caused the entire heavenly cloud platform to be filled with a sacred light. The ambience completely transformed. They're so beautiful. Xia Yuluo looked at them enviously. These women possessed a special charm that made others feel like they couldn't touch them due to their own inferiority. The woman at the front was especially beautiful. A faint halo of light covered her body. She was like an immortal who had descended to the mortal world, making people have an urge to kneel before her. Long Chen, why did you put on a hat? Xia Yuluo suddenly saw Long Chen had stealthily taken out a hat that blocked his face. Shu, I know that person. She likes me and has been pursuing me for a long time, but I'd rather die than accept. I even fled to the Grand Xia, but she followed me here. Come in front of me a bit so she doesn't recognize me, whispered Long Chen. He knew her. She was the one he had encountered in the eastern wasteland, the disciple of the elusive music immortal palace, Ziyan. She had been the one to send Long Chen the photographic jade. But he continued to have a strange feeling about her. Talking with her was difficult. It felt like he was an irredeemably wicked villain, while she was a pure-hearted, kind fairy who was constantly trying to enlighten him. Although the two of them could count as friends, Long Chen was afraid of having her continue trying to enlighten him. It was better to just quietly watch. Xia Yuluo glared at Long Chen, not believing him. The elusive music immortal palace's disciples all cultivated the Tao, and they were not permitted to have a male and female relationship. How could she possibly be pursuing him to this point? That was clearly nonsense. Xia Yuluo was just about to take Long Chen's hat off and tell him not to mess around when Ziyan spoke. Bowing slightly toward them, she said, "This junior is Ziyan, one of the elusive music immortal palace's disciples. The reason I came to the Grand Xia today was originally to pay my respect to the wine god palace. But I was drawn over by the music here, so please forgive me for my sudden intrusion." You're too courteous. For you to flatter my Grand Xia by coming here is a blessing for us. Please sit. As the host, Xia Yunfeng hastily arranged things for them. Everyone quickly opened up a space for them. Whether it was the experts from the Grand Han or the Grand Xia, they all stared at Ziyan and the others with reverence. They could sense the energy of the heavenly Taos around them. It was like they had come from the heavens. Everyone's so polite. I came because I heard some music from here, and after finishing some business, I wanted to see if there was perhaps fate between us. Can I know who was the one playing the zither back then? Asked Ziyan. It was this junior. I've caused the elusive music immortal palace's fairies to laugh at my poor skills. The zither-playing woman walked forward with an unnatural expression. Although she claimed to be proficient in the music Tao, she knew that she had no right to be compared with the elusive music immortal palace's disciples. Seeing Ziyan and the others looking like goddesses from the heavens, she was both envious and worshipful. Her gaze was very complicated. Sister, you're too courteous. Amongst 100 people there will be 100 different kinds of music. The sound of the zither reflects the heart, and since each person's experiences and comprehension are different, the same song can be played with different flavors. Each art has its own possibilities, and each person's Tao is different. There is no high or low, vulgar or refined. In the Eastern Wasteland, I once learned many things from a certain person. Since then, I've found great pleasure in all kinds of music Tao. Each musician's style represents different lives, and they are all worth learning and experiencing. Ziyan smiled at the woman. Her voice was like heavenly music, and it was both graceful and amicable. She seemed to be a mix of immortal and mortal, making people feel like they were dreaming. Long Chun stealthily peeked at Ziyan from the crowd. He couldn't help being shocked. Ziyan had actually reached an extremely terrifying realm. Although she hadn't released her aura, Long Chun sensed some kind of incredibly powerful energy from her. This energy was boundless. It was like Ziyan was a terrifying controller of heaven and earth's fate. It gave Long Chun a feeling like he couldn't possibly defeat her. Although that energy within her was silent, making it so he couldn't estimate her power, just by using the sharp senses of the 9-star Hegemon body art, he felt that he was not her match. Your words honor me. They are truly food for thought, and millions of times better than the filthy speech that comes out of an unbearably coarse fellow. The woman bowed toward Ziyan, but her eyes were looking at a certain figure in the crowd. She was intentionally trying to use Ziyan's evaluation to counterattack Long Chun. The elusive music immortal palace's disciples stood at the pinnacle of the music Tao. Even such a figure hadn't called her music trash, so how could Long Chun be qualified to do so? Ziyan was startled. She immediately followed that woman's gaze, and her beautiful eyes brightened. In a pleasantly surprised tone, she said, Long Chun, why are you here? For Ziyan to call out Long Chun's name shocked everyone. They looked at Long Chun with disbelief. Xia Yuluo was especially shocked. Did this mean that Long Chun hadn't been talking nonsense just now? Damn it, she still recognized me. To be able to recognize me with just a glance, I suppose it simply means that I, Long Chun, am an exceptionally outstanding crane amongst a flock of chickens. Since he was exposed, Long Chun took off his hat and smiled toward Ziyan. After parting in the Eastern Wasteland, Lady Ziyan has become even more beautiful. Your beauty and cultivation base advance with each passing day. Long Chun looked at Ziyan with a smile. It went without saying that Ziyan was already a fairy-like beauty. But now the immortal charm around her had grown even denser, making it very similar to Meng Qi's air. But Meng Qi's immortal charm was innate, while Ziyan's immortal charm was through cultivation. Their airs were truly similar. But in Long Chun's eyes, when it came to beauty, Meng Qi still beat her by a level. Perhaps that was because she was his future wife, and he felt his wife to be prettier. Ziyan didn't express any surprise at Long Chun's amicable smile. Instead, she acted familiarly with him, saying, After parting in the Eastern Wasteland, Brother Long's grace is the same as ever. It truly makes a person sigh. But of course, the passing years are like a blade cutting at heavenly geniuses. Time can change my appearance, but it cannot change my heart. Or to put it in a simpler way, when it comes to my character, it's like a blind person trying to see. It's hopeless, said Long Chun helplessly. Seeing Long Chun and Ziyan smiling and talking shocked everyone watching. Ziyan was like an emissary from the heavens, making them all become reserved, afraid that they might offend her. But Long Chun was still acting the same. That sloppy appearance of his when combined with Ziyan's immortal charm caused them to feel like a fairy had been forced to fall into the mundane world. Sorry, I've been rude. I met Long Chun in the Eastern Wasteland by chance. The person I was talking about from before was him. Big sister, what you said before, there was someone who criticized your playing? You couldn't be talking about Long Chin, could you? I want to hear what kind of evaluation he had for you as well, said Ziyen expectantly. The woman immediately became dumbfounded. From all appearances, it seemed Ziyen deeply respected Long Chen, almost like they were companions. Hence, she had no idea how to reply. It was nothing. This sister's music was not bad and can even be praised as somewhat innovative. It was quite creative to combine the great wasteland Western scriptures Supreme Senses chapter with the divine sealing soul calming song, said Long Chen rather than mentioning the flaws he had mentioned before. After all, pointing at a woman while scolding her was beneath his dignity. The woman's resentment toward him faded a great deal upon hearing this. Long Chen was giving her face. Oh, the great wasteland Western scriptures Supreme Senses chapter is exceptionally profound. Although only an incomplete remnant remains, it's still able to greatly benefit others. Each word of it is a cryptic gem. Combining it with the divine sealing soul calming song would be extremely difficult. If the singer's vocal range was not great enough, it would make the words sluggish and unable to maintain a full richness. It might even harm the soul. For Big Sister to be able to combine them is truly an amazing thing, praised Ziyen. The woman had an urge to prostrate herself toward Ziyen. Even ignoring her great experience, just this magnanimity was something she could only look up to. Thinking of how she had intentionally provoked Long Chen due to someone else's orders, she felt ashamed. Miss Ziyen, since you've come, why don't you play a song as well? If you did, I would weep tears of joy, said Long Chen with a smile. Ziyen smiled slightly. Since Brother Long has put it this way, I wouldn't dare to refuse. How about this? I will embarrass myself and play the song that Big Sister has just played. Everyone, please reflect over it carefully. Ziyen flew onto the stage. With a wave of her hand, an ancient zither appeared before her. The zither was 2.5 meters long, with the head of a dragon and body of a phoenix. It was unknown what wood it was made of, but the veined patterns on it almost looked like scales. A simple, ancient aura shot out of it. Everyone hastily sat down properly, eagerly awaiting Ziyan's playing. Long Chen, do you really know this divine fairy? Is she really pursuing you? Xia Yuluo looked at Long Chen with a look of disappointment. Foolish girl, are you still a child? You'll believe everything that anyone says? Yes, I know her, but she's from the elusive Music Immortal Palace, and they're not allowed to have personal relationships. For you to believe such nonsense, are you a fool? Long Chen couldn't help being speechless upon seeing Xia Yoluo's completely serious expression. This child's intelligence was gravely lacking. So that's what it was. Wait, you're the fool. Xia Yuluo rapped Long Chen with a giggle. Just at this moment, Ziyen spread her hands, and her long fingers began to gently strum the zither strings. Deep sounds reverberated throughout the air. The song she was playing was the same. But while the woman's playing had been diffused and light, this sound was heavy, directly entering the depths of people's hearts, and even their souls. Long Chen smiled faintly. This was the true peak of the music Tao, to use one's heart to connect to the heavenly Taos, to have one's music reflect one's thoughts and feelings. It was like falling into a deep pool with incredibly clear water, without the slightest of impurities. As the zither music played, they were all drawn into another world. They felt like they were sitting in space. Stars flowed around them as they quietly watched the workings of the cosmos. Primal chaos split at the beginning. Yang formed the heavens, Yin formed the earth, Yin and Yang divided, heaven and earth facing. A beautiful voice suddenly appeared within that space, penetrating deep into their souls. It was like heaven and earth were chanting, as if gods were murmuring. In that instant, Long Chen saw the beginning of the world. First, there was nothing but primal chaos. Then Yin and Yang divided, heaven and earth were born, the world began to revolve, and the stars began to shine through the sky. What a deep artistic realm. She's actually able to use the music Tao to manifest the scripture. This manifestation is the closest to the original creator's artistic realm. Regretfully, the Supreme Senses chapter is far too damaged, or she really might have been able to use the music Tao to restore it to its original state. Xia Yang was sitting in a grand palace with the white-haired elder. The white-haired elder's turbid eyes were looking outside the palace. This girl is probably the future successor of the elusive music immortal palace. She has already reached the realm of being one with the Tao. That is the appearance of an Empyrean. Xia Yuyang nodded. He sighed. Empyreans are the true favorites of heaven and earth, the future masters of the world. Regretfully, my Grand Xia's karmic luck isn't enough to give birth to an Empyrean. Just as the two of them were sighing emotionally in the palace, on top of the heavenly cloud platform, Ziyan pressed her hands against the zither and her singing came to a stop. Everyone was still caught up in a kind of heavenly Tao realm. Long Chen was the first to start clapping. Ziyan's zither arts had already reached a divine realm of perfection. Long Chen truly prostrated himself toward her in admiration. This zither music on the heavenly cloud platform can only exist above the heavens, here in the clouds and wind. The human world can only occasionally hear such a thing, praised Long Chen. Only then did everyone recover. Xia Yuluo felt even more admiration for Long Chen due to his ability to flatter someone so eloquently. I don't dare accept such words. Brother Long, for you to praise me like this, can you please give me some pointers? Said Ziyan. I can't, because there's no point as there are no faults. And since we're so familiar with each other, I'm afraid that if I continuously praise you, you'll get embarrassed, said Long Chen. This singing and zither playing was truly flawless. Let alone an amateur like Long Chen, even another expert in the music Tao wouldn't be able to pick out a flaw. Han Wenjun also went up to say a few courteous words. He wanted to say something that would display his own cultured and artistic skills, but when he opened his mouth, he had no idea what to say. Because Long Chen had taken the lead, it made all the other words of praise sound tasteless. On the other hand, Xia Yuluo, who was innately pure-hearted and also worshipped Ziyan, held her hand and began to incessantly chatter. There were several times when Xia Yunfeng gave her a look for her to take note of etiquette, but she didn't even look at him. Big sister, how about you come and stay at my home tonight? Let me tell you, Long Chen has many fine wines, all of which he swindled from the wine god palace. I'll treat you to some. Xia Yuluo was full of worship for the practically divine Ziyan, and her mouth also became unguarded, causing her to say anything and everything. Long Chen raged. You foolish girl, what are you saying? How can you say it was swindling? Furthermore, don't you have some as well? If you're going to treat someone, why force others to be the generous ones? Just look at how stingy you are. Big sister Ziyan, come stay here. I'll give you my own wine to drink. Xia Yuluo had yet to let go of Ziyan's hand. Thank you, little sister. It just so happens that it's getting late, and for you to take me in naturally makes me endlessly grateful. How could I refuse? Ziyan smiled. Xia Yuluo was delighted to see Ziyan really agree. Xia Yunchong immediately had someone go prepare rooms. For the elusive music immortal palace's disciples to live in the Grand Xia's imperial palace was an immense honor to the Grand Xia. That was because the elusive music immortal palace's position in the cultivation world was just that high. Long Chen, I'm going to the wine god palace tomorrow to pay my respects to the high priest. Do you want to come as well? Asked Ziyan suddenly. Definitely. I've always wanted to pay my respects to the high priest, but I heard he doesn't like being disturbed by others, so I never had a chance. Long Chen was delighted. The high priest was the master of the wine god palace. He was claimed to be an apostle of the wine god sent to spread his glory. He was an extremely mysterious existence. There was another banquet when the sky darkened, but Ziyan refused Xia Yunchong's invitation and did not attend. Instead, it was Xia Yuluo who had pulled her away. Most likely, she had gone to show off her battle spoils from the wine god palace. The night banquet ended with an extremely calm atmosphere. The next morning, Long Chen received Ziyan's invitation to go to the wine god palace. Not only were Long Chen and Ziyan going, but Xia Yuluo, Xia Yunchong, Han Wenjun, and Li Wanji were also coming with them. When the six of them burned incense in front of the wine god's image, Nothing happened with the others, but the incense sticks that Long Chen lit once more turned to ash instantly, shocking the others. Everyone, please come in. The high priest is already waiting for you in the divine hall. The disciple in charge of greeting guests led the way. Everyone followed him into the wine god palace. Ziyen was the lead this time. The others were only accompanying her. It had to be known that the high priest was not someone that just anyone could see. Even the emperor himself couldn't see him whenever he wished. The Grand Xia's emperor had held power for many years, but he had only seen the high priest once. Others didn't even have the qualification. Because Ziyen was a disciple of the elusive music immortal palace, she had already sent a greeting many days ago and gained permission to see the high priest. Long Chen and the others were just profiting off her. Originally, Xia Yunfeng and the other princes had also wanted to come, but they hadn't succeeded. If too many people went, it would be too impolite. So there were 2 from the Grand Xia, 2 from the Grand Han. Adding on Long Chen as well as the host, Ziyen, there were already quite a few people. If any more came, it would appear that they were lacking respect for the high priest. The path they were taking was the same small path that Long Chen and Xia Yuluo had taken before. It stripped them of their cultivation base. They slowly followed it through a winding forest. The Wine God Palace truly is a wonderland within the human world. The secluded and winding path, the small pavilions hidden in the mountains, it's almost similar to my Grand Han's hidden immortal island, praised Han Wenjun as he looked at the surrounding scenery. Long Chen sneered inside. This was truly shameless. Long Chen looked at Han Wenjun acting like a refined scholar without saying anything. But Xia Yunchong couldn't help but open his mouth. Prince Wenjun's comparison is a bit off. The Wine God Palace has a true god's inheritance, while your hidden immortal island only has a few myths circulating around it. It seems the difference between them is too great to compare. The Grand Han's hidden immortal island was nothing more than an island with beautiful scenery. In order to make the island more famous, they had fabricated a mass of contrived divine stories involving it. Then they had made a few ancient relics on the island. Then looking over the entire Martial Heaven continent, they had picked out famous figures and tossed a few traces of those figures on the island. They would cry, "Look, that grand figure actually came from my Grand Han." They had no foundation, so they randomly made up whatever they wanted. That greatly dissatisfied the Grand Xia, which was why Xia Yunchong couldn't help but retort. All those myths happened too long ago, and there's no way to confirm them. We can't say with absolute certainty that there was no true immortal on Hidden Immortal Island, so it's too early for you to say that. Furthermore, I only said that the scenery was similar. Brother Yunchong misconstrued my words. Although he couldn't match Long Chen, that didn't represent that Han Wenjun didn't know how to quibble. When comparing eloquence, Long Chen could make Han Wenjun choke with a single sentence. And Han Wenjun had the same ability when it came to Xia Yunchong. Xia Yunchong had no way to retort. Esteemed guest has returned. Please accept this bow from this disciple. When they reached the first pavilion, the man from back then was standing in front of it and bowed toward Long Chen. That made everyone jump. What was going on? Since when did the Wine God Palace's disciples bow to others? Long Chen hastily raised him and bitterly smiled. They were all grand figures with the ability to shake heaven and earth, while he was just a swindler. Last time, he hadn't known about the origins of the Wine God Palace's disciples. When he had learned about it, he had begun to coldly sweat. I really don't dare to accept such a thing, said Long Chen humbly. Disciple came to a sudden comprehension due to your pointers. The shackles on my heart were broken, and the clouds and dust were swept away. I've been waiting every day for you to return so that Disciple can thank you. Within the next few days, Disciple will be going on a journey of enlightenment, so esteemed guest's arrival has fulfilled Disciple's desire, said the Wine God Palace's disciple. He once more bowed respectfully toward Long Chen and vanished from their sight. Other than Xia Yuluo, the others had no idea what was going on. What kind of joke was this? The Wine God Palace's disciples were all incomparably prideful people. For them to bow toward a youth, and even call themselves disciple, had this world gone insane? Even Ziyen was no exception. A bright light shone in her eyes when she looked at Long Chen, making him feel embarrassed. He said, "In truth, it was just a coincidence. I don't know what random thing I spouted, but this senior managed to enlighten himself through it. It was just his fortune and had nothing to do with me." They continued onward. As a result, people continued to come out of the pavilions they passed to say their regards to Long Chen, making them speechless. Was Long Chen's relationship with other people really so good? "Damn brat, you finally returned. Get over here, let's fight another 300 bouts." Suddenly, a huge figure appeared in front of them, causing them to jump in shock. This person was over 2 meters tall. His hair fell to his shoulders, and his fierce-looking face looked like it was made of copper or bronze. An ominous glint was present within his eyes, making him seem like a demon blocking their path. None of his aura was leaking out, but his eyes were as sharp as blades. Their scalps turned numb just from being stared at by him. Han Wenjun, Li Wanji, and Xia Yunchong were all appalled. They recognized this person to be a legendary figure who had once shaken the majority of the continent, the fierce young butcher Tu Qiansheng. "Damn fatty, do you have to frighten people like this? Today, I'm accompanying my friend to see the high priest, so wash your neck and wait for me. I'll crush you till you don't have any fingers left." Long Chen extended a fist confidently. Xia Yunchong's soul almost fled in terror, and his face turned green. Did Long Chen not want his life any longer? As expected, Tu Qiansheng furiously frowned, and he also extended a fist at Long Chen, saying, "Fine, I'll wait for you to return. I don't believe I can't beat you. Uncle Fatty, last time you lost so miserably. Are you going to get revenge this time?" In front of this terrifying, demon-like Tu Qiansheng, Xia Yuluo wasn't the slightest bit afraid, and she even giggled. This Tu Qiansheng wasn't scary. The true terror had come when Long Chen and Tu Qiansheng had started drinking. At that time, they had begun furiously cursing each other. His current appearance was actually his friendly one. Tu Qiansheng raged, "Damn girl, do you know how to speak? What are you talking about? What miserable losses? He's a guest and a child, so I naturally had to let him win a few. Hurry up and go so you can come back. This time, I'm going to wipe out all my losses." Tu Qiansheng's final words ended up confirming Xia Yoluo's words. Tu Qiansheng had been defeated last time, and he refused to accept that. Walking past Tu Qiansheng's area, they followed the Wine God Palace's welcoming disciple forward. "Long Chen, you beat that terrifying fellow? How did you do it?" Xia Yunchong couldn't help but ask. "It's not like what you're thinking. We were playing a finger-guessing drinking game. He couldn't beat me, and as soon as he lost, he began to curse me. When I get cursed, I cursed back, and he couldn't beat me in cursing either. Now he's looking to be beaten again." Long Chen shook his head. "Are you not afraid of him?" Xia Yunchong was shocked. "Afraid of what?" "He's now a disciple of the Wine God Palace, and he's long since exchanged his butcher's blade for a wine barrel. He doesn't dare hit me. So, he couldn't beat me in the finger-guessing game, he couldn't beat me in cursing, and he doesn't dare hit me. Didn't you see his furious expression just now? It's because he has no way to beat me. In truth, he should be thanking me. Rather than spending all day making wine, I can accompany him with some games, some drinking, and some cursing. Think about how great such a life is. He should be very grateful to me," said Long Chen with a laugh. Xia Yuluo giggled. "Big brother Long Chen is very evil. That Uncle Fatty lost to him so badly that I couldn't even keep watching. In the end, Big brother Long Chen was so shameless as to even demand wine from him, and he cursed him when he didn't give it to him. The two of them both cursed each other fiercely, but in the end, Uncle Fatty still gave the wine to Big brother Long Chen. That's why I feel that Big brother Long Chen is eviler and fiercer than Uncle Fatty. Ungrateful person who forgets kindness, spit out all my wine," demanded Long Chen frostily. "Teeth, put out your hand and I'll spit it out." Xia Yuluo stuck out her tongue at him and made a vomiting motion. "Yuluo, pay attention to your manners. You are a princess." Xia Yunchong pulled on Xia Yuluo. How had this child turned so foolish as to make such an improper action? Ziyan smiled slightly. Long Chen is someone who likes to act naturally without caring about trifles. And Sister Yuluo is also very good. You're kind and pure, so being casual is fine. Oh, big Sister Ziyan overpraises me. Xia Yuluo was incredibly excited to receive Ziyan's praise. Han Wenjun and Li Wanji exchanged a glance, both seeing the anger in the other's eyes. The two of them were like shadows, completely ignored. However, their main goal in coming to the Grand Xia this time was to curry favor with the Wine God Palace. They had no choice but to follow them. As the welcoming disciple led the way, they crossed a large mountain, arriving in a flat land with a palace built on top of it. Please go inside. The welcoming disciple only led them to the gate before stopping and expressing that they could enter. Entering, the first thing they saw was a folding screen. There was a poem written on top of it. Wine contains the great universe, the pot contains the passing of time. All things are in motion, freely changing. Clear wine is tasteless like water, turbid wine is dense like soup. Primal chaos devolves into clearness and turbidness. 100 flavors brew within the sky. Wine allows one to escape the pathless chase of fame and fortune. To become intoxicated is to dream of 10,000 daos, to wake is to see the world. This poem was written using immortal characters. The strokes of the characters never paused, making the poem look like it had been written in one go. It looked a bit messy and also carefree. It was like it had been written to vent emotions. It was as if a master calligrapher had gotten drunk and written it without any care for tidiness. It was confident and easy, and contained its own Dao charm. Ziyan and the others stood in front of the screen and were lost in thought as they looked over the words. Whether it was the actual words or the calligraphy, they all contained boundless Dao charm. If they could comprehend the profundities within it, it would benefit them for a lifetime. This is a kind of peak realm and also an artistic realm. A flash of emotion and insight from the writer made them use this rapid and carefree method to express their comprehension. This kind of wisdom, this magical power, praised Han Wenjun as he examined the writing. It was unknown whether he was doing it intentionally, but his huge mass of praise made Long Chen's hair stand on end. Did he really have no shame? Even if he had to give praise, he should base it on the facts. The way Han Wenjun put it, it seemed like these words could bring the dead back to life. You flatter me. As expected of the Grand Han's prince, this imaginative power and brilliance with words are admirable. I wonder if the other friends can appraise this old man's scribble? An ancient voice rang out from within the palace. Everyone was shocked. For this person to be speaking from within the palace, it had to be the high priest. It was unexpected that this poem had been personally written by the high priest. Senior's calligraphy is carefree and uninhibited. The bold strokes are like coiling dragons expressing their own transcendent wills, said Li Wanji. Following Han Wenjun, Li Wanji also began to overflow with praise, making Long Chen speechless. The high priest's voice rang out. This old man's calligraphy is very unskilled. For a young friend to praise me like this makes me blush with shame. Do the other friends have anything to say? Please, don't be constrained. The high priest's voice was extremely kind and peaceful. He didn't have any of the domineering air of a peerless expert. He seemed more like a kind elder. This little one doesn't understand calligraphy, but within the words, I can sense a boundless and majestic artistic realm. It's very beneficial to my cultivation, so Senior's divine masterpiece has already greatly benefited me, said Xia Yunchong respectfully. Young friend cultivates the undefeatable Tao, which requires paying particular attention to the heart. To keep a heart worry-free is very difficult, said the high priest. Long Chen, Xia Yuluo was a bit nervous. It's fine. Worst case, just say a bunch of nonsense. The high priest is a very nice person. He won't kill you. Long Chen smiled at the pale Xia Yuluo. Now even Ziyan was speechless. Long Chen really did dare to say anything. Did he not know how to judge the situation first? A young friend, don't be nervous. You can say whatever you want, laughed the high priest. Then I'll tell you the truth. I didn't feel anything. I don't even recognize most of these characters, said Xia Yuluo embarrassedly. Good. It's rare to have someone be so frank. If you know, then you know. If you don't know, then you don't know. Considering the vastness of the world, who could possibly know everything? Laughed the high priest, sounding surprisingly happy. Many thanks, Grandpa High Priest, said Xia Yuluo happily, being so intimate as to even change the way she called the high priest, from senior to grandpa. But Xia Yuluo did look cute, especially when she wasn't being obstinate. She looked like a pure child who naturally had no schemes. The elusive Music Immortal Palace's distinguished disciple, do you have any comments on my scribbling? The high priest's tone was clearly different when it came toward Ziyen. It actually had the feeling of him speaking to someone of the same generation. Using the wine Dao to approach the heavenly Daos, attempting to break through. Ziyen softly opened her mouth and only said a few words. Truly worthy of being a genius of the elusive Music Immortal Palace. You even managed to see through my realm. The high priest seemed to greatly appreciate Ziyan's comment. Young friend Longchen, last time you came, I was in seclusion, so we had no opportunity to meet. It was truly regretful. But I heard that you managed to plunder everything from my Wine God Palace's disciples. This ability fills me with admiration. Now the high priest's voice contained a joking tone. Longchen immediately felt like his face was burning. It was as though he had tricked a child of their lollipop, and now their family head had come to ask what had happened. He awkwardly said, "Cough, in truth, it was just a social exchange." Yes, a social exchange. Longchen wouldn't admit to something like swindling people even if he was beaten to death. That was his strongest point. It was just a joke. I wonder if young friend can give me some comments about my scribblings? Said the high priest. Longchen thought about it for a moment and said, other than wine, there is nothing else. When Ziyen heard this, she became lost in thought. When she looked at those words once more, a flash of insight appeared in her eyes, and her lips curled up into a beautiful smile. Other than wine, there is nothing else. Other than wine, there is nothing else. The high priest laughed delightedly. The screen slowly moved away, revealing a bricked path. The bricks were so old that they were gray and covered in fine cracks. Behind the screen was a statue. It was around the same size as a real person. It depicted a man holding a wine pot in one hand and a wine cup in another, drinking without restraint. A tranquil and peaceful light shone in his eyes, along with divine light. Once they approached the statue, Ziyen, Xia Yunchong, Han Wenjun, and the others all involuntarily knelt on the ground, dumbfounding Longchen. Damn it, why do we have to kneel? I'm not used to that. Looking at everyone else kowtowing to the statue devoutly, Longchen couldn't help being stupefied. He was too conspicuous now as the only one standing. He knew this was the wine god statue, a symbol of the wine god's inheritance, as well as representing the wine god's Tao. Kneeling toward it was to display their respect to the god. This wasn't a form of surrender, but simply etiquette. However, for a long time now, Longchen hadn't been able to force himself to kneel. But with everyone else kneeling, standing would make Longchen appear rude. Longchen repeatedly told himself that this was just a kind of etiquette, no different than a bow. He had only just managed to bend his knees when the high priest's voice suddenly rang out. Everyone, come in. The wine has already been prepared, so I'd like to invite you to try it. Thank you, high priest. You're really handsome, graceful, and smart. Don't worry, I definitely won't swindle you of your wine. Longchen was delighted to be able to dispense with the kneeling etiquette. Everyone only got up now. But seeing Longchen, their expressions became odd. The reason why they had knelt was because they had had no choice but to do so. They hadn't been able to stop themselves. It had come from a reverence in their souls toward a god, and only by kneeling could they calm themselves. Longchen, how brazen! Even the wine god isn't worthy of you kneeling? Han Wenjun directly insulted Longchen upon seeing that he refused to kneel to the wine god statue. He hoped to get the high priest to expel him. Does it have anything to do with you? Longchen rolled his eyes at Han Wenjun. He was truly a petty little person. What kind of crappy prince was he? Ziyen looked at Longchen in shock. She wasn't jealous, She simply wanted to know how Long Chen could ignore a god's divine might. Was he really so arrogant that he could even ignore a god? They quickly advanced forward after hearing the high priest summoning. They had only just left the statue when, crack, the statue suddenly became covered in fine cracks. The cracks were very tiny, and the sound was also very light. With their cultivation bases stripped, they ended up not sensing it. In truth, the instant Long Chen had started to bend his knees, the statue had quivered ever so slightly. And it was also in that instant that the high priest summoned them in. Once they were inside the main hall of the palace, they saw a kind-looking old man with long white hair sitting and smiling toward them. Disciple greets the high priest. They all hastily bowed. This high priest was the one with the highest authority in the Wine God Palace. They all felt respect for him. There's no need to be so courteous. Please sit. The high priest pointed toward the mats in front of him. From left to right, Ziyan, Long Chen, Xia Yuluo, Xia Yunchong, Han Wenjun, and Li Wanji sat down on the mats, looking at the high priest before them. The high priest looked like a very ordinary elder. No one could sense any cultivation base from him. He wore simple hemp robes and had a cane by his side. It looked to be made out of ordinary wood and was not a martial weapon. Sitting in front of the high priest made them all feel exceptionally peaceful. They could be natural and familiar with him without constraining themselves. It's been a long time since I've spoken with guests. Today, I was lucky enough to speak so much with youngsters. It feels like I've even grown younger. The high priest smiled. Grandpa High Priest, you're not old at all. The frank and outspoken Xia Yuluo directly comforted him. If you turn Grandpa to Big Brother, he really won't seem old at all. Long Chen smiled slightly, but his expression quickly stiffened. He didn't know why, but the words he had only been thinking inside had popped right out of his mouth. He looked in shock at the high priest. Just what kind of ability was this? Long Chen, don't be rude. Ziyan glanced at Long Chen. He was going too far to even dare to joke at the expense of the high priest. The others were too stunned to even react to that. Ah, the high priest laughed. It's fine. Youngsters should act like youngsters. Otherwise, by the time you reach my age, you'll regret being too cautious in your youth. Long Chen was embarrassed as well as apprehensive. The high priest was probably even more terrifying than he had imagined. He wasn't even able to be duplicitous in front of him. Disciple Ziyan pays her respects to the high priest. I beg the high priest for his guidance, said Ziyan respectfully. This old man has nothing to teach you. The only thing I can do is give you a few jugs of old wine. The high priest shook his head. A jug suddenly appeared in his hand, and he poured a bowl of wine in front of each of them, gesturing for them to drink. Long Chen raised his bowl. He found that the wine seemed to be extremely turbid, but a careful examination shockingly revealed that the turbid entities were actually runes. The wine actually had runes within it. All its energy had been locked into the runes, and when the wine was swallowed, the runes instantly dissolved, their energy crashing throughout the drinker's entire body. But everyone's bodies began to glow. Heaven and earth's energy surged rapidly toward them, whirling around. But there was one exception. That was Long Chen. Long Chen felt the runes dashing throughout his body, constantly nourishing it. All his pores were opened as if to drink in heaven and earth's energy. But that energy ignored him. It entered his body and then exited it, flying toward the other 5. It was like there were 6 hungry hatchlings begging for food. The others were all fed but not Long Chen. This is a wine I made in the prime of my life. It is able to connect to heaven and earth's energy to temper the body. Here, try the second wine. The high priest poured another bowl of wine for them, but this wine was completely clear. It would be assumed to be water if it weren't for the fragrance coming from it. Entering their stomachs, the wine energy slowly spread throughout their bodies. Compared to the previously fierce torrent of energy, this second wine was more gentle and mellow, leaving behind a rich aftertaste. Long Chen wasn't able to sense the heavenly Tao energy, but he saw Ziyan and the others had content and relaxed expressions. They were clearly in a special state. Long Chen couldn't help but bitterly smile inside. It seemed he had come for nothing this time. These final wines seem to have no affinity with him. This is the third wine. It is something new I've been developing over the past few years. Please have a taste. Long Chen raised the third bowl. When he drank it, he couldn't help being dumbfounded. How was this wine? It was clearly water. Not only was Long Chen dumbfounded, Ziyan and the others also did not comprehend. They clearly also felt like they had just drunk water. But comprehension suddenly flashed within Ziyan's eyes. Many thanks for High Priest's pointers. The starting point is also the end point. Rebirth, breaking out of the cocoon, leaping onto a new track in pursuit of higher points. Ziyan respectfully bowed toward the High Priest. The true Tao is the peak of simplicity. It can be found in the curving of a square into a circle, in a surface broken by it, in a body covered by a surface. Even if it's the inheritance of a god, the Tao can still progress, said the High Priest. Ziyan once more bowed to the High Priest delightedly, filled with gratitude. Disciple was lost and unable to break through the next barrier. Your pointers have allowed me to comprehend how to break through. Haha, I don't have the qualifications to give you pointers. I just offered you a few bowls of poor wine. The High Priest smiled. The rest of you can wander around the other places of the Wine God Palace. Perhaps you will be able to make a few gains. I have a few things I wish to say to young friend Long Chen, so please stay behind for a moment. Everyone was startled, looking at Long Chen with disbelief. The High Priest wished to speak to Long Chen alone? There was no way for them to refuse. Han Wenjun and Li Wanji were both jealous. Han Wenjun had come this time just to see the High Priest. For this, he had spent 3 years studying wine, completely mastering wine tasting, winemaking, and all kinds of etiquette and knowledge. Just by smelling it once, he could tell a wine's craftsmanship, maturity, and composition. That was all so he would be able to appraise wine better and win the favor of the Wine God Palace's disciples. But now, although he had managed to see the High Priest, he had only drunk 3 bowls of wine, without even gaining the qualifications to speak to him before being shooed off. He panicked. High Priest, my Grand Han wishes to invite the Wine God Palace to establish a branch in my Grand Han, allowing the Wine God's glory to shine in even more places, said Han Wenjun hurriedly. That's a good thing. I will consider it, said the High Priest. Han Wenjun was delighted to hear that. Only then did he leave with the others. Once they were gone, Long Chen said, High Priest, you absolutely cannot establish a branch in the Grand Han. Oh, why is that? Asked the High Priest. Because if you go the Grand Han, the Wine God Palace will very likely become the Grand Han's, said Long Chen gravely. Where the Wine God goes is not important. As long as it's possible to properly lead the path of the Wine Tao, it's enough. The only danger is certain people harboring improper intentions and misrepresenting the Wine God's will. Now that we're alone, if young friend has any questions, you can go ahead and ask them. If I can answer them, I definitely will. Even Long Chen didn't know why the High Priest would treat him so specially. He couldn't help but feel overwhelmed by favor. Disciple truly has something he would like the High Priest's help with. Long Chen hesitated and told the High Priest about the medicinal wines he had made. He also brought them out for the High Priest to appraise. Just through a final combination, you were able to create such an effect. It's practically a divine ability. Even with the High Priest's calm nature, he was shocked. This little one has some understanding of the pill Tao. I hope to be able to undergo a mutually beneficial exchange with the Wine God Palace's Wine Tao. Right now, these medicinal wines are just the result of compounding the wine's effect with medicinal pills, making their effect limited. For the pill Tao to merge with the Wine Tao requires them be combined in the brewing process. During this process, the pill Tao and Wine Tao will corroborate each other, and I trust that it will be greatly beneficial to the Wine God Palace's disciples' cultivation. Otherwise, the Wine God Palace would not have agreed to cooperate with Pill Valley back then. Furthermore, I swear on my very life that I definitely won't betray your trust like Pill Valley. All the medicinal wine will only benefit the people by my side, and I definitely won't do anything to blaspheme the Wine God, said Long Chen solemnly. I didn't expect young friend to have such mastery over the pill Tao. However, brewing medicinal wine is truly a thorny problem. Back then when we ceased working together with Pill Valley, other than the fact that they committed a taboo of my wine god palace, there was actually another reason. During the process of brewing medicinal wine, Pill Valley refused to be sincere, and they intentionally hid many of the core parts of their work from us. As a result, my wine god palace's disciples were unable to learn or benefit much, said the high priest. Clearly, the wine god palace hadn't benefited much from their cooperation with Pill Valley back then. The Pill Valley had only taught them some rudimentary arts, but even for those, they had hidden their essence. They refused to give them their true techniques, while they instead secretly peeped on the wine god palace's winemaking arts. The wine god palace had been infuriated, as Pill Valley had taken quite a few winemaking recipes as well as a few arts. That was why the high priest was very cautious when Long Chen brought up the topic of working together. He told Long Chen this story to say that unless he brought out something that moved him, he wouldn't be able to accept. Although I am young, I understand how to act. Last time when I interacted with the various wine god palace disciples, I relied on the principles of my Pill Dao to appraise their wines. You've seen that there are many common aspects between them, making them mutually beneficial. It will only benefit the wine god palace's disciples. Here, I have written down several hypothetical wine formulas based on a few seniors' wines. However, because I don't know the exact winemaking processes and arts, this is just a tentative proposal. But I'm confident it can move you. Long Chen handed the high priest a sheet of paper. He had written the formulas of various medicinal pills, as well as some brewing processes of wine. He had also listed several mutually beneficial areas during the brewing process between the Pill Dao and Wine Dao. In the paper, he also pointed out several possible difficulties and areas that would have high failure rates. It was extremely detailed, and there were all kinds of extremely accurate deductions and inferences that the high priest found it hard to believe. He had to read over the sheet several times. He couldn't help being shocked. Long Chen had managed to deduce the raw materials, processing, flame control, and various arts that had gone into making various wines, and they were frighteningly accurate. He had then proposed a few concepts to merge their wine with medicinal pills. Some of these concepts had arisen back when the Wine God Palace had cooperated with Pill Valley, but many of them were completely new and even more brazen. Long Chen had also written many possible solutions for difficulties that they had been unable to overcome in the medicinal wine brewing process back then. You truly have moved me. It seems the young people these days are truly frightening. So tell me, what is it that you want from me now? Asked the high priest. What I need is some formulas of the Wine God Palace's wines, as well as detailed information on the manufacturing process. I will merge the Pill Dao into those processes. However, I am only able to offer you the theoretical processes. Actually putting it into practice will be up to the Wine God Palace, said Long Chen. The high priest smiled. You should know that my Wine God Palace has existed for countless years, and we have many wine formulas. That's fine. However many wine formulas you have are how many pill formulas I have. Long Chen also smiled, but his smile was full of confidence. How arrogant. But I like this kind of refusal to admit defeat in youngsters. All right, we can try this. I will tell the disciples to give you their wine formulas on your way out today. But let me warn you, the theories and formulas you offer them have to entice them, or don't blame me if they don't want to work together with you, said the high priest. Don't worry, if I didn't even have that little ability, how would I dare to propose working together with the Wine God Palace? Said Long Chen. Since that's decided, I won't take up any more of your precious time. After saying that, Long Chen left. Several hours later, the high priest was standing inside a courtyard, looking at the wine god statue which was covered in cracks, staring blankly. High priest, you wanted to see me? The imposing and demon-like Tu Qianshang walked in. How were your battle spoils? The high priest smiled slightly. Tisage, don't bring that up. That bastard didn't give me the slightest face. Not only did he take all my wine, but I even ended up owing him a favor, raged Tu Qianshang. Losing to him isn't embarrassing. Even the wine god refused his incense and couldn't bear to receive his kneeling. Just slightly bending his knees has caused the wine god's statue to almost shatter. He is a completely inestimable existence, said the high priest. What? That fellow is this terrifying? Tu Qianshang looked at the wine god's statue in shock. Qianshang, I just received the wine god's enlightenment. Long Chen will give my wine god palace a huge opportunity. In the future, when Long Chen comes, you'll be in charge of receiving him, said the high priest. Yes, disciple understands, said Tu Qianshang. Our cooperation with Long Chen is limited to exchanges of the wine dao. Don't bring up any of those ancient secrets to avoid karma. But other than that, there's no need to be constrained. Allowing everything to come naturally is best. Act how you would act normally, said the high priest. Disciple understands. Hee, no wonder that little brat is so evil. As expected, he's not simple, Tu Qianshang chortled. Long Chen returned to the Grand Xia's imperial palace. Ziyan was actually waiting at his residence. Long Chen, the high priest's pointers have weakened my bottleneck. Tomorrow, I will be returning to the elusive music immortal palace to enter seclusion and break through, said Ziyan. You're going back this quickly? Long Chen was surprised. He also felt a sense of helplessness when it came to the music Dao's experts' sudden breakthroughs. This kind of breakthrough was too easy, wasn't it? Just hearing a few words, comprehending a few things, and they would break through to higher realms? That was much more relaxed than the bitter cultivation of a martial cultivator. Martial cultivators had to advance level by level, with each barrier being difficult to break through. But music cultivators and wine cultivators, they cultivated a kind of mental realm, and what they were after was comprehension. However, it had to be said that although martial cultivators might not find it so effortless to break through, they could break through more consistently. They could take things step by step, and when they encountered a tough barrier, they could use medicinal pills to break through. But for those who cultivated special paths like the music Dao and wine Dao, those medicinal pills were essentially useless to them. Sometimes, if they were unable to find the spark of insight, a single barrier might stymie them for years. For example, Ziyan had been stuck at her barrier for several months. Without the high priest, she might have taken years or even decades before breaking through. There was even the possibility that she would be chained by these shackles for a lifetime, having it become a heart devil and never being able to advance. Long Chen, you've been fighting all over during the past few years, giving birth to even more killing intent. Seas of blood are churning in the depths of your eyes. Are you unable to sense that? Ziyan sighed as she stared into Long Chen's eyes. Don't preach to me. I don't want to hear the same things you already said in the Eastern Wasteland. That's the worst topic and also very hurtful. Long Chen shook his head. In the Eastern Wasteland, Ziyan had tried to persuade Long Chen, and the two had parted on bad terms. They both had their own philosophies, and neither was able to shake the other's conviction. Long Chen, have you never looked in the mirror and sensed another you within the depths of your soul? Ziyan looked at Long Chen worriedly. Long Chen's heart shook. He truly had felt that something was off with him recently. When he had looked in the mirror, he found that he was almost unable to look into his eyes, as if he was afraid of himself. It seems you've already sensed it. Long Chen, you've killed too many people. The dark shadow within you has absorbed their resentment and has rapidly grown. If this continues, you will lose yourself and become a crazy devil that only knows how to kill. Have you not noticed your temper getting worse, and you're easier to anger? More and more, you're unable to control yourself, said Ziyan. Perhaps. But then I want to know why the corrupt paths people are fine even though they kill far more people than me, said Long Chen. Because they have their corrupt god, and the power of their faith binds them. You don't have that faith, so you are like a rootless duckweed, a kite with no string. You are unable to control yourself, so when your desire to kill overwhelms you one day, you will become a killing machine, said Ziyan. I have my own faith. My faith is my parents, my family, my lovers, and my hot-blooded brothers. They are all existences I would sacrifice my life to protect. Miss Ziyan, don't talk to me about killing again, and don't try to reform me. There are many things that we've already said in the Eastern Wasteland, but I'll say this one more time. You are not me and I am not you. Your duty is to carry out the will of the heavens. You think everything the heavens decided upon is right, but I'm different. I don't think the same way. There are fundamental differences between us, and we are unable to see things from the other's point of view. So can you not keep bothering me with this problem? I can't understand why you would focus so much on me when there are innumerable evil people in this world far worse than me, said Long Chen. Ziyan struggled for a moment, but in the end she said, because you are my life's foreordained devil star. What is that supposed to mean? Long Chen was flabbergasted. What it means is that we are fated enemies. If you don't die, I will. Ziyan looked at Long Chen with a complicated expression. In truth, when she had left the eastern wasteland, she had already escaped the thought of Long Chen and her devil star. But the chance encounter this time made her realize that fate could not be changed. This joke is not one bit funny. Long Chen shook his head. It's not a joke. In the eastern wasteland, I should have already killed you, but I was unable to force myself to do so. This time, I find that your influence over me grows stronger. My heart is already growing turbulent because of you. I'm terrified to see your figure rooted in my mind, but I cannot get rid of it. Long Chen, there's still one chance. Come to my elusive music immortal palace and leave all the slaughter behind. We can live in peace. Ziyan's voice actually contained a pleading tone. Long Chen was shocked. Ziyan's current appearance showed she wasn't joking at all. Only now did he realize how serious this situation was. For you, I can also give up cultivating. As long as you stop killing. Ziyan softly held Long Chen's hand. Ziyan had understood at that time the true meaning of a devil star. A devil star was not purely an enemy, but an existence entangled with feelings of love and hatred. Back in the eastern wasteland, Ziyan had only felt Long Chen to be a confused youth. She hadn't particularly had that much faith in her devil star matter, but she had been curious, so she had begun secretly watching Long Chen. That was when she had seen Long Chen encounter an assassination trap. Despite clearly knowing the doll-carrying child had been an assassin, he hadn't been able to kill her and had rather allowed her poison needle to stab him through the heart. He had gently rubbed that girl's head without the slightest resentment. Instead, he had treated her warmly and caringly. The words he had said at that time had permanently branded Long Chen's image in Ziyan's mind. Now, several years had passed. Being focused on the music Dao, Ziyan had intentionally hidden these memories, gradually forgetting about her devil star. But when she once more encountered Long Chen, all those suppressed memories reappeared, as vivid as ever in her mind. The first time she saw Long Chen again, she hadn't been able to stop her heart from pounding. Furthermore, she had even felt delighted as if she had been expectantly waiting to see him again. Last night when she had been drinking wine with Xia Yuluo, she had heard Xia Yuluo's story about how Long Chen had swindled all this wine. She had actually laughed until she had swayed back and forth, causing the other elusive Music Immortal Palace's disciples to be shocked. Music cultivators had to separate themselves from the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Joy, anger, worry, pensiveness, sorrow, fear, shock. Each emotion could disturb a music cultivator's heart. That was a taboo for music cultivators. At that time, even Ziyan had grown afraid. She had forcibly suppressed those emotions. But on the trip to the Wine God Palace with Long Chen, she found that everything she had done was futile. Each glance, each movement from Long Chen affected her heart. No matter how she tried, it was all useless. Now, Ziyan understood the true meaning of a devil star. And in front of Long Chen's questioning, she finally revealed the whole story. Now she was begging Long Chen to escape this fate, to avoid fighting to the point of you die or I die. She would rather give up cultivating and accompany Long Chen to old age. Long Chen looked into Ziyan's eyes. They were completely clear, and he felt like he could see all her secrets. Now he finally knew the whole story. Sorry, I can't go with you. I still have many things I need to do. Long Chen shook his head. He wasn't able to do this. He not only had his lovers and hot-blooded brothers, but he also had to find his own biological parents. There was too much on his shoulders. Tears slowly dripped down Ziyan's face like pearls. They slowly fell to the sides of her lips. This was Ziyan's first time experiencing the taste of tears. An indescribable feeling of sorrow and grief filled her. She stared at Long Chen blankly, unable to say a thing. "Sorry," apologized Long Chen. "You don't need to say sorry. This was all fated. If a day comes that your corpse lies before me, I ask you not to hate me. In the same way, if there comes a day when your saber cuts off my head, please don't feel grief. I won't hate you." After saying this, Ziyan's tears gushed forth. She suddenly held Long Chen and began to bawl. The tear-streaked face of this beauty pained Long Chen's heart. "Sorry, Long Chen. I am the elusive Music Immortal Palace's successor. I absolutely cannot betray them. So when we meet again, either you die or I die. I won't show mercy on the battlefield." After saying this, Ziyan left without giving him a chance to say anything. Her scent still remained around him, but she had vanished. Long Chen stood there, unable to comprehend things for a long time. How did such a contrived plot happen to him? Shouldn't it only happen in the melodramatic stories of the Grand Han? Fate? Decided by the heavens? Long Chen had never believed in such nonsense things only used to con others. But when Ziyan had completely opened her heart to him, he had seen the karma. That karma involved Ziyan's master who had told her that she would encounter a devil star in her life, and that she had to kill him. "When we meet again, either you die or I die. What kind of bullshit is this?" Long Chen burst into curses. He found it inconceivable that such a melodramatic thing could happen to him. The sudden resentment and blessing had come and gone too quickly. He hadn't even had a chance to clearly feel it before the heavens suddenly slapped him in the face. The most infuriating thing to him was that he didn't doubt Ziyan's determination to kill him at all. In the end, Ziyan was a member of the elusive Music Immortal Palace, and she was loyal to her own heavenly Tao inheritance. Well, the main thing was, just how had she decided that he was definitely a fiendish devil? Fuck, how did I end up provoking a killing star? Long Chen felt like he was going crazy. It couldn't be that the heavens had decided that since it couldn't kill him through heavenly tribulation, it decided to arrange such a terrifying opponent for him? Long Chen sensed extremely terrifying energy within Ziyan's body. If Ziyan had decided to kill him right here and now, he probably wouldn't have been able to beat her. But even though Ziyan wasn't killing him now, she would quickly break through to the Jade Core realm to become a king. As for Long Chen, he was still stuck at the fourth heaven stage of foundation forging. When he encountered her in the future, she would be even more terrifying. Ziyan directly led her people to leave, without even saying goodbye to the Grand Xia's royalty. Theoretically, that was very rude, but Long Chen knew that Ziyan's mental realm was too chaotic right now to care about such things. After she was gone, Long Chen forcibly calmed the ripples that had appeared in his mind. In any case, there were plenty of people who wanted to kill him. One more didn't matter. That very afternoon, he received a list from the Wine God Palace's disciples. All their wine formulas were written down there. In total, there were 128. Long Chen realized the Wine God Palace only had 128 true disciples. Not only did they send the wine formulas, but also the raw materials to create them and equipment for the winemaking process. Each one of them had also sent a large batch of their wine. Long Chen got to work. In order to show his sincerity, Long Chen searched through his memory to find at least 3 ways to combine it with medicine, over 5 ways to refine it, and over 10 ways to merge the pill Tao into it from the beginning for each wine. This would make it easier for these disciples to comprehend the heavenly Taos during the winemaking process. They would be able to comprehend the heavenly Taos from the 2 angles of both the wine Tao and the pill Tao. In truth, Long Chen was only able to use a couple dozen wines these disciples gave him. The others weren't useful to him. But Long Chen couldn't possibly only exploit those few people while ignoring the others. That wasn't honest. After all, he was getting a huge advantage. All he gave them was theories, and in the future, he would be able to get as much medicinal wine from the Wine God Palace as he wanted. He had to do this matter perfectly, or he would be too embarrassed to take their wine. The next day, When Long Chen brought the new formulas he had made to the wine god palace, all the disciples were shaken. The wine god palace went into complete seclusion, saying that they were no longer accepting any visitors. They had begun researching the formulas Long Chen had given them. They were quickly infatuated with this way of merging the pill Dao with the wine Dao. They found that this new winemaking process allowed their realms to rapidly advance. Long Chen's methods immediately won the high priest's trust. He told Long Chen that the medicinal wines he needed would be supplied limitlessly by the wine god palace. As for Long Chen, he was truly brazen. He even gave the high priest dozens of medicinal formulas for his own wine. Although the high priest's wine was basically flawless, which person who had reached the pinnacle didn't want to continue taking another step forward? Long Chen wrote out top-tier medicinal formulas he had in his pill sovereign memories in accordance with the particularities of the high priest's wine. Although it was very likely that none of these medicinal formulas would work out in the end, testing their luck was good too. What if it really did work? Furthermore, the high priest was old and bored. He wouldn't mind researching this. Due to the wine god palace becoming busy with Long Chen's matter, Han Wenjun was unable to wait any longer. He had been waiting for the news from the wine god palace this entire time because the high priest had told him that he would think about it. But after 7 days of constantly inquiring about the state of things, even the welcoming disciple at the gates was irritated. He sent a message higher up and he got a direct reply. The wine god palace had no intention of opening a branch within the next 10 years. They could ask again after 10 years. They had pushed him off for 10 years in one go. Han Wenjun's expression became unsightly. He had had 2 goals in coming here. One was to seduce Xia Yuluo in hopes of forming a deep relationship with her. Originally, this matter was supposed to be a cinch, but Long Chen had ruined things. Now, although Xia Yuluo didn't hate Han Wenjun, he could no longer sense that intense passion from back then. Although Han Wenjun invited Xia Yuluo to go out to play and Xia Yuluo always agreed, she would bring along the other princesses as well, making it so he couldn't use his melodramatic pickup arts. As for his second goal in coming here, that was to form a good relationship with the wine god palace, using his wine arts to win their favor and invite them to his Grand Han in order to spread the culture of wine. If the wine god palace joined the Grand Han, the entire nation would grow. This was also a good thing to the wine god palace, but it had also been stopped by Long Chen. How could Han Wenjun possibly wait 10 years? In the end, the next day after the wine god palace gave him this reply, Han Wenjun and Li Wanji chose to return to the Grand Han. Long Chen was in charge of sending them to the gates, completely finishing his duty of receiving them. Pavilion Master, both my goals were ruined. What about your side? Within the carriage, Han Wenjun was facing Xian Jizi, who had been missing this entire time. I've handled everything on my end, said Xian Jizi. But this humiliation the Grand Xia gave me, I'll make them pay the price within the 4 nations' ancient remnant. Killing intent burned in Han Wenjun's eyes. After finishing off his duty of receiving the Grand Han's delegation, Long Chen spent the majority of his time in the wine god palace. The disciples needed guidance during the winemaking process. Although Long Chen knew nothing about winemaking when it came to refining pills, he could be rated as unmatched beneath the heavens. Living in the wine god palace was convenient, and he would occasionally go drinking with Tu Qiansheng. These days were very comfortable. On this day, Xia Yuluo and Xia Yunchong came to the wine god palace. They saw Long Chen and Tu Qiansheng bare-chested, covered in sweat, both of their eyes red. Men in the country wander. Who doesn't carry a blade? With 1 slash I'll kill you, with 3 slashes I'll kill you. Ha, you've lost, drink? Long Chen laughed crazily. Xia Yunchong was speechless. Long Chen really was a monster. Looking at the fatty's expression refusing to admit defeat, Xia Yunchong truly doubted whether he really was a legendary figure. He braced himself and announced, Long Chen, that's about enough. The 4 nations' ancient remnant will open tomorrow, so prepare yourself. We're moving out. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.